Chapter 158. Your Highness, can you loosen your grip? It was as if she was being entangled by a giant python. Was it necessary to hug her so tightly? Li Hongyuan, who had his eyes closed, heard her words. Not only did he not loosen his grip, he turned over and pressed Jingwan under his body. Jingwan took a deep breath. The weight of a grown man, and a strong one at that. Was he trying to crush her to death without letting him eat his fill? Did he have to be so ruthless? Sensing Jingwan's deathbed struggle, Li Hongyuan finally moved his conscience away. He didn't care that his chin was still resting on Jingwan's shoulder. His face was close to hers, and he whispered in her ear, "Jiao jiao jiao jiao." That's right, Li Hongyuan didn't call her Wan Wan anymore. It was only because she had suddenly made such a request a moment ago. Who was Li Hongyuan? He immediately thought of the cause and effect. He already knew that Jingwan had misunderstood him and treated her as a substitute for another woman. Although he was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood, in a situation where he couldn't explain himself, this misunderstanding was actually the most reasonable explanation for his words and actions toward her. In fact, he could actually tell what Luo Peishan had said to Jingwan that he cared about her. But he knew that she could accept the cruelest truth and didn't like it when others lied to her. Therefore, even if his lie would never be exposed, he didn't want to lie to her. Moreover, based on his own unusual experience, he inferred that Jingwan was also unusual. It was hard to guarantee that Jingwan wouldn't discover any clues in their future interactions. He didn't want to make her unhappy with a lie now. Midway, Jingwan's small request made Li Hongyuan quite happy. Even if Jingwan didn't say anything, he could guess what she was thinking. Although he wasn't happy to be used by his wife, it was the most gentle way to achieve his goal. However, other than this title, she didn't care about anything related to him. Perhaps she would even feel guilty towards him because she used him. After they got married, she would use him as a good wife to make it up to him. Her sudden request showed that she cared. At least at that moment, she didn't want to be someone else's substitute, even if she wasn't sure if he was thinking about her or Wan Wan. This realization made Li Hongyuan happy, but at the same time, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. As a result, he stopped calling her Wan Wan. Instead, he gave her a nickname that didn't match her at all, but was the target of his hard work, Jiao Jiao. He raised her to be Jiao Jiao. After that, he became even more ruthless. Li Hongyuan closed his eyes and kissed her shoulder, which had changed color. "Do you like it?" Jingwan's face turned red. She flew into a rage out of humiliation and spoke without thinking. "Shut up." Li Hongyuan chuckled. "Jiao Jiao, what kind of nonsense are you thinking about? A good girl should be reserved." Was she thinking about something crazy? She wasn't reserved. She even dared to play the blame game. Jingwan gnashed her teeth in anger. This bastard, hooligan, and pervert. Jingwan even suspected that she had returned to her real 14-15 years old self. Otherwise, how could she be so easily provoked by him? She really wanted to bite him alive. In any case, he was a prince. How could he be so shameless and shameless? At the very least, he should have some poise, right? It turned out that it was all eaten up by dogs. He knew that Jingwan was sulking, but he was very happy. Sure enough, compared to her calm and collected self, he preferred her lively and lively. Perhaps it wouldn't be as difficult to raise Wan Wan into Jiao Jiao as he had expected. Another thing that made Li Hongyuan happy was that after this intimate contact, he was at least 70% sure that his obedient Jiao Jiao had never experienced the matters between a man and a woman. Although he had already said that no matter what her background or experience was, he would accept it all without reservation, but when he thought that she would only belong to him, he couldn't help but feel particularly happy. In reality, Li Hongyuan's possessiveness had been very strong since he was young. It was just that in his previous life, he restrained himself and didn't show it so obviously. Later on, when he became the emperor, the world was his, and there wasn't anything that he particularly wanted to possess. After his rebirth, it was different. In addition, when he was the emperor, he was used to being overbearing and willful, so he didn't restrain himself at all. As a result, some of his actions towards Jingwan were attributed to his possessiveness by his old man. Li Hongyuan touched Jingwan's hair that had already been separated. It was soft and smooth, and the hair was still black and shiny all the way to the tip. There were no forks, so it could be seen that it had been carefully maintained. "Are you hungry? How about I have someone prepare the meal?" Jingwan was half pressed down by him. Even if she wanted to look at him, she couldn't do it. Her heart was somewhat complicated. In fact, she was now doubting the so-called great favor. Thinking back on the past 2 hours, excluding those parts where he specifically teased people, his actions, even if it was in her previous life, she basically couldn't find a man who would do it to this extent. What's more, in a feudal society where men were superior and women were inferior, if they didn't rely on men, it would be extremely difficult for a woman to survive. Under this kind of background, the other party was a dignified Qinhuang, the emperor's favored son. Male chauvinism and self-centeredness, this was normal. Their so-called favor should be more material. In other aspects, it was mostly indulgence and a bit of gentleness. But if the beauties that Jin Qinhuang kept, it was said that they all came from very humble backgrounds. The best were probably those girls from the down-and-out official's family. The proportion of these people was very small. Most of them came from brothels, dance halls, opera troupes, and there were also some commoner women. Upbringing and environment determined one's self-cultivation, bearing, and even taste. Jin Qinhuang, who was born in the imperial family, received the best upbringing. The palace maids that he came in contact with, their appearance and words were all first class. Even if he left the palace and opened a residence, his taste had changed. But could these women make him change his self-title from Ben Wang to I? Could they let him take care of them everywhere, putting the other party first in everything? Some of the things that were served by the maidservants, he would personally take care of them. If it was just a woman that he loved to the bones, there might be some possibility. But those favor didn't last more than 7 days, and he would throw them away after playing with them. He dared to talk back to the emperor, brazenly punish his brothers, ignore the forbidden laws, and attack the court officials. Would such a person lower himself for those women? Was it possible? She, who gave him the title of Shengdot, had a problem with her brain. In the end, it was still because of the Wanwan that he spoke of. Jingwan was really curious. What kind of woman was the other party to be able to make Jin Qinhuang this kind of deep affection? So deep that she was just a substitute, yet he could hold her in the palm of his hand. But, such an important person, why didn't third sister-in-law mention a single word? It couldn't be that she was hidden so tightly that the people outside didn't even hear a bit of the news, right? But, was Jin Qinhuang the kind of person who would hide things? So, no matter what kind of situation it was, there seemed to be something that didn't make sense. Since she couldn't figure it out, she decided not to think about it anymore. Her stomach was hungry now. Moreover, this exercise, in addition to the fact that it was already summer, not to mention that it was countless times more tiring than her usual exercise, the degree of stickiness also multiplied. It was unbearable. Freshen up first. Okay. Li Honyuan rubbed Jingwan's face, sat up, and pulled Jingwan up. He pulled the thin quilt over and wrapped her tightly. Someone come. Gong Momo pushed the door and entered, respectfully and properly. Does Wanya and Miss want water? She understood Jingwan's habits very well. Li Honyuan faintly answered. Gong Momo withdrew. Jingwan watched Gong Momo leave for a short period of time and didn't raise her head. But even so, Jingwan still couldn't help but shrink into the quilt, leaving only the parts above her eyes exposed. Li Honyuan looked at it and found it funny. Ben Wang, I should have no problem bathing and changing your clothes. But, if you want to freshen up, you still have to let your mama do it. So, it was useless to do anything now. In a while, she still had to face it. Really have no prospects. You are her master. Jingwan glared at him angrily. There was still a hint of spring in the corner of her eyes, but it wasn't threatening at all. Instead, it made a certain someone's heart flutter. He reached out and pinched the tip of her nose. Don't tempt me. Otherwise, you probably won't be able to go home today. Jingwan looked away and took a deep breath. telling herself not to argue with this bastard. For servant girls carried in an oversized bathtub that was meant for 2 people. It was obviously filled with water, but the 4 of them looked no different from ordinary servant girls. They carried it steadily and even seemed to be very relaxed. If one looked closely, one wouldn't notice anything when they were separated. But when one looked at them as a whole, one would discover that their movements were shockingly identical. Because of this discovery, Jingwan suddenly raised her head to look at Li Hongyuan. Then their eyes met. It felt as if Li Hongyuan had been looking at her all this time. It felt as if something was out of control. It wasn't a good feeling. What's wrong? Do you have something to say to me? Li Hongyuan gently caressed her slightly swollen lips. Nothing. He clearly told her that he wasn't as nothing, as the outside world said. She had already guessed that he wasn't as simple as he seemed. But why did he tell her these secrets so easily? What was his intention? Could it be that he wanted to win over grandfather? Jingwan was slightly annoyed. She had overreacted. Li Hongyuan was also very helpless towards his wife's unnecessary worries. He had these people serve him because they were completely loyal to him. They definitely wouldn't reveal anything about him. It was all for the sake of this silly girl's reputation. Otherwise, if today's matter were to spread, even if he didn't completely devour her, the nature would be the same. After the servant girls left, Li Hongyuan lifted the quilt and carried Jingwan off the bed. He walked around the screen and approached the bathtub. He stretched out his long legs and stepped in. Then he submerged their bodies into the water. Li Hongyuan lifted her chin and teased. What's wrong? Are you still shy now? It would have been better if he didn't say it. Now that he said it, Jingwan couldn't help but blush. However, she felt that her reaction was too cowardly. Previously, she was the one who took off this person's clothes. If she was shy now, wouldn't it be a joke in front of him? So she tried her best to remain calm and let the blush on her face fade as soon as possible. This guy let her discover his secret. Was he just going to let it go and not say a word? Jingwan continued to think about the problem just now. https://www.bicken.com/11/118076653133 HTML chapter error. Click here to report. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bicken. Com mobile version reading website, mbicken.com. Chapter 159. Such a carefree laugh, in Jingwan's eyes, was an ear-piercing mockery. This time, not only did her face turn red, her entire body seemed to be boiling hot. Jingwan held back her restless claws. She warned herself that the other party was a prince and had a noble status, so she couldn't hit him. But this bastard was really too much. His arrogant laughter continued for a long time. Jingwan turned around to face him. Her legs were apart as she knelt on either side of Li Hongyuan's thighs. Her hands were on his shoulders. Compared to before, her posture was naturally a bit taller. The part that was previously submerged in the water was exposed to the air. Li Hongyuan was dazzled. His laughter naturally disappeared, but the corners of his mouth were still hooked. His hands didn't move. He even calmly leaned back and spread his arms on the edge of the tub. His posture was welcoming her teasing and tasting as she pleased. Under his deep and teasing gaze, Jingwan was still terrified. For this kind of thick-skinned and hungry wolf who hadn't eaten his fill, teasing him was the same as sending herself to his door to take advantage of her. She withdrew her hands and stepped back. Her body sank into the water, and the water directly reached her chin. Li Hongyuan was originally waiting for Jingwan to settle accounts with him. Sure enough, she was shy. Being stripped of his clothes by her was already something that could only be encountered by chance. Li Hongyuan was quite regretful. However, his Jiao Jiao would obediently throw herself into his arms one day. There was no rush. There would be plenty of opportunities in the future. He reached out and pulled her over. He felt Jingwan's resistance. "I won't tease you. Let me hug you." In the end, his wife was still a bit young. Even if she hadn't lost her virginity, he didn't dare to go too far. It would harm her body. And if he was provoked again, he would be the only one to suffer. Jingwan looked at him very suspiciously, but in the end, she didn't argue with him. If she didn't comply with him, when he made a move, she would be the one to suffer. She followed his strength and snuggled into his arms. Her back leaned against his chest, and her head leaned back on his shoulder. She relaxed her body that still hadn't fully recovered. Li Hongyuan splashed some water on Jingwan's shoulder. "I was wondering if Jiao Jiao was going to use the same method to shut me up again." He sighed regretfully, sealing it with a kiss. "You wish." Jingwan thought that he couldn't see it and rolled her eyes. "You dare to roll your eyes at me?" Jiao Jiao's courage is indeed not small. Having been caught, Jingwan felt uncomfortable and speechless at the same time. "Why do you keep staring at her?" "I think His Highness was mistaken." "All right, whatever Jiao Jiao says. However, didn't I tell you to call me Ayuan? Why are you calling me Prince now?" Jingwan smiled. "How can this subject call Your Highness by his name?" She could call him anything she wanted in bed. That was just for fun. If she still called him that after they were done, it would be disgraceful. Li Hongyuan raised his eyebrows, but didn't continue to pursue the matter. When this girl was stubborn, even 9 oxen couldn't pull her back. "Your Highness, Miss." Mama Gong's voice sounded from outside the screen. "What's the matter?" Li Hongyuan asked indifferently. Replying to Your Highness, Mrs. Meals are always punctual. She must be hungry now. This servant has prepared some snacks for Miss to fill her stomach first. Please allow it, Your Highness. As usual, Mama Gong spoke neither hurriedly nor slowly. Li Hongyuan rubbed Jingwan's stomach. It was this prince who didn't think it through. He kissed Jingwan's forehead. "Jiao Jiao, eat first. Then let your mama help you bathe. When she's done, we'll eat together." When he finished speaking, he moved Jingwan a little further away and stepped out of the bathtub. He casually grabbed a robe from the side and put it on. Then he tied the robe around his waist. His movements were casual and unhurried. Disregarding everything else, just looking at him right now, this man had a fatal attraction. Li Hongyuan tossed his hair behind his back. Just as he was about to leave, he saw Jingwan leaning against the edge of the bathtub and looking at him. Her small eyes were filled with pure praise and appreciation. "All right, it's not bad that this body can attract Wan's attention." He stepped forward and tapped the tip of her nose. "What, have you been charmed by this prince?" Jingwan raised her head to look at him and suddenly smiled. "Your Highness is boundlessly handsome. Everyone loves you. Flowers bloom when they see you." Li Hongyuan raised his eyebrows. Does she have resentment in her heart and want to find a way to tease him back? "It doesn't matter if other people love me or not. Having Jiao Jiao's love is enough." "Little girl, with this level of skill, she still wants to tease me?" Li Hongyuan calmly walked away barefooted. In fact, it wasn't impossible for him to wash Jingwan clean from head to toe. Compared to Jingwan being seen naked by other people, he was quite willing. However, he had never served anyone before. He was afraid that it would take a lot of time. If he didn't do it right, he would make Jingwan wait with an empty stomach. He would also feel distressed. He could only give up and wait for another day. Jingwan was depressed and speechless. This little rookie, shouldn't go and arm wrestle with other people whose skills have long been maxed out. Gong Mama held the pastries and turned around the screen to look at the marks on Jingwan's shoulders that were different from the color of her skin. Even if it wasn't the first time she saw it, she still found it hard to calm down. "Miss," Gong Mama put the tray on the table next to the bathtub. "Try these pastries and see if they are to your liking. If they are not, Nubi will go and change them." Because Jingwan was uncomfortable, she shrank her body and didn't notice Gong Mama's matter-of-fact tone in Jin Qinhuang's territory. Because Gong Mama had always been an upright person, she was really afraid that her behavior would make her unhappy. She wrapped her arms around her chest and wanted to cover the marks on her body. However, There were marks all over her body. How could she cover it up? Instead, there was a smell of wanting to cover it up. Gong Mama reached out and began to wash Jingwan's hair. This is not Mrs. fault. Miss doesn't need to care about it. It's just that this man can't be pampered or indulged. They are used to giving an inch for a foot. Therefore, Miss should refuse when you should refuse. If you comply with everything he wants, the only one who will suffer will be yourself. Originally, her skin was as white as snow, but now it definitely wouldn't disappear in a few days. That living hell king didn't want to let Miss know before because he had some misgivings. This time, it was not an ordinary kind of ruthless. Jingwan was speechless. Mama, your style seems to be a bit wrong, ah. However, Jingwan chose to keep quiet at this time. She said in her heart, Mama, the other person is a Wangya, The consequences of refusing will be very serious. Moreover, your family's miss, I am also not living up to expectations. I can't help but sink into it, Therefore, this thing, really does a lot of harm. After Gong Mama helped her wash her hair, she also loosened her muscles and bones. After Jingwan finished washing and drying her hair, she found that everything inside was very complete. The clothes were also prepared. They were brand new and fit her very well. It was as if the clothes were tailor-made. The material was of the highest quality. The workmanship was exquisite. The embroidery was first class. And there were also some ingenious little designs. In her opinion, the high-end goods from her previous life were probably just like this. Even if people were of the same age, there would be differences in height, weight, and weight. Moreover, she worked out all year round, so there were many parts of her body that were stronger than other girls. Although it wasn't to the extent that her muscles were protruding, the minute details of her body were still different. These clothes were definitely made according to her standard measurements. Originally, she thought that the other things here might have been used by unknown people, so she felt a little uncomfortable in her heart and didn't want to use them. However, upon closer inspection, it seemed that all of them were brand new. Moreover, from the way they were placed, it seemed that no one had moved them after they moved in. This intention. Jingwan frowned. Mama Gong saw Jingwan's expression, but didn't say anything. Miss, please sit down first. This servant will comb your hair. Jingwan nodded. Jingwan heard the sound of footsteps. It was very light, but she knew who it was. Sure enough, when the person appeared, he was neat and tidy from head to toe, not a single hair out of place. However, he wasn't wearing the commonly seen black brocade clothes, but moonlight silk. That's right, it was blue moonlight silk. The surface seemed to be flowing with moonlight, and it looked extremely luxurious. Even the embroidery thread used on it had the same effect, and it didn't spoil the overall effect at all. Because of this set of clothes, it softened the violent aura on his body. In addition to his good mood, it complemented each other even more. Every move of his showed an extremely good bearing and cultivation. He was a complete nobleman. At the same time, that restrained aura gave him a confidence that the world was under his control. Because of this confidence, he was indifferent, calm, and even leisurely. Li Hongyuan took the comb from Mama Gong's hand and combed Jingwan's hair. Jingwan was about to say something, but she seemed to think of something. She hesitated and didn't say anything. As he combed Jingwan's hair bit by bit, he couldn't help but think of the time when he was with her in his previous life. No matter whether he had recovered or not, she would comb his hair every day. She was very attentive, careful, and gentle. Seeing Li Hongyuan in a daze, Mama Gong reminded him softly, "Your Highness." Li Hongyuan casually returned the comb to her and sat to the side. Eunuch Mu served him a cup of tea. At this time, the screen had been removed. The bathtub had been taken out, the floor and other places were cleaned, and needless to say, the bed outside was cleaned. Li Hongyuan sipped the tea leisurely and watched Mama Gong comb Jingwan's hair. Mama Gong's movements were swift, and it didn't take long for her to finish. She hesitated for a moment, and then opened one of the jewelry boxes on the dressing table. Inside was a set of light pink pearl head ornaments. Mama Gong's eyes brightened. She didn't need to look at other things. Just this set was very suitable for this young lady's clothes. Jingwan looked at Mama Gong's impolite appearance and was speechless again. This isn't you, ah. Wake up quickly, ah. Jingwan found out that her mama seemed to have a big opinion of Jin Qinhuang, but she couldn't do anything to the other party. So she used this kind of piling on the other party's things to take revenge on the other party? Thinking about what Mama Gong said before, it was right for her to throw a tantrum at Jin Qinhuang. Now, it was also right for him to take revenge? Why did it seem like Jin Qinhuang owed her? However, she didn't know where to put those things from before, so she couldn't refuse. Jingwan stood up and automatically turned in a circle in front of Li Hongyuan. Does it look good? No matter what, it was the other party's things. He should admire it, and at the same time, let him find a sense of accomplishment from her. Li Hongyuan nodded. His family's jiao jiao was really beautiful. Getting up, he pulled Jingwan's hand. Let's go, let's eat. Jingwan was indeed hungry. Seeing the fruit on the table before and the delicious dishes, her stomach became even hungrier. There were only 8 dishes and 2 soups. For a Qinhuang's identity, it really wasn't much, but it looked like they were all excellent. Li Hongyuan waved away the maidservants who were preparing to serve the dishes, and personally ladled half a bowl of soup for Jingwan. Things that shouldn't be done by him. He had done it again and again. Jingwan was now a lot calmer, but politeness demands politeness. She also ladled half a bowl for Li Hongyuan. Oh, is this the young couple having a meal intimately? A teasing and frivolous voice sounded. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653135. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. Exempt from registration. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Biku Go mobile reading website, ambicken.com. Chapter 160. Compared to the last time at Rouge Pavilion, her clothes were thinner, her waist was tighter, and her breasts were even more swollen. She leisurely walked in like a cat, her plump buttocks swaying left and right. She charmingly smiled at Jingwan, blinked her eyes, and waved her hand at Jingwan in a flirtatious manner. At this moment, Jingwan really didn't know what kind of expression to take out to face her. On the contrary, Li Hongyuan didn't even lift his eyelids as he picked up a piece of fish with the bones removed and placed it in Jingwan's bowl. Still not hungry? Hurry and eat. That attitude was as if he completely treated Yin Yang as an invisible person. Feeding his hungry wife was the most important thing. As for the rest, don't mention Grandaunt. Even if Imperial Grandfather crawled out of the Imperial Mausoleum, he would have to stand aside. Seeing this, Jingwan hesitated for a moment. Her stomach was indeed hungry. It was true that the other party was once a princess, but she didn't know Moreover, she was in front of a certain Qinhuang. Therefore, Jingwan concentrated on eating. Yun Yang saw a certain unfilial grandson ignoring her, and her mood wasn't so wonderful. Princess Yang, who was in a bad mood, rolled her eyes. That belly full of bad water seemed to overflow from her eyes, and the red mole under the corner of her right eye became even redder. Swaying her waist, she walked to Li Hongyuan's side and boldly threw herself on Li Hongyuan's body. She stretched out her finger to point at Li Hongyuan's head. You heartless man, forgetting the old when there's a new person. In vain Nujia treated you wholeheartedly in vain, yet you are so heartless and cruel. While speaking, she pretended to rub the corner of her eye. Jingwan looked at her in surprise. She should say that she really deserved to be called the Princess Hiyang who dared to raise a gigolo and was unrestrained, single-handedly beheading the Northern Hun King. If it was another person who would dare to casually throw herself on a man. Moreover, the other person was her own grandnephew. When she saw that Yun Yang deliberately pressed those 2 lumps on Jin Qinhuang's chest to change shape, she couldn't stop the corners of her mouth from twitching. Li Hongyuan's face was as dark as ink. Originally, It was not easy for him to hold the wife he had been longing for a long time today. Although he did not eat to his heart's content, it did not change the fact that he was in a good mood. Unfortunately, there was someone who did not know what was good for them and came to make trouble. Even his personal attendants did not allow them to get close to him, let alone an old woman who did not want to do it. In addition, the smell of cosmetics was completely different from Jiao Jiao's, which seriously affected his appetite. Scram! The living king of hell unleashed his tyrannical aura. He was furious, ruthless, and cold. The three words, living king of hell, were vividly displayed at this moment. Even though Princess He Yang, who had experienced great winds and waves, experienced killing on the battlefield, and had traveled extensively for several decades, at this moment, she still felt a burst of fear and trepidation. She had long known that this grandnephew was not simple. Among the princes, he was the most ferocious beast that lay dormant in the dark. Although she did not know what he did specifically, but every time the other princes suffered a great loss, he was most likely involved in it. Compared to the other grandnephews who abided by the rules and talked about bearing, but were actually just sanctimonious hypocrites, it was clear that Li Hongyuan, this grandnephew who did not take etiquette seriously like her, was more liked by her. However, this brat sometimes had a bad temper, as well as his private insidiousness and viciousness, which made people loathe him. Yun Yang paused, and then sat upright as if nothing had happened. She flung the fragrant handkerchief in her hand. What's the matter? Are you worried that your wife will be jealous? Li Hongyuan ignored her once again and patted Jingwan's head. At that moment, the intimidating aura he exuded earlier was gone. Are you scared? Don't worry. Ben Wang will target anyone but you. Hurry up and eat. Don't mind this old woman. Li Hongyuan was a bit frightening just now, but Jingwan was not frightened. She had a feeling of, so the rumors were not false. In front of her, Jin Qinhuang really restrained his temper. It's just that, to say that Princess He Yang was an old woman, wasn't it the same as specifically picking on people to step on? Yun Yang looked much younger than her actual age. Her figure was well maintained, and the clothes she wore were more colorful. It could be seen that she cared a lot about her age and absolutely refused to accept that she was old. With a glance, sure enough, the one with a black face became Yun Yang. The seductive aura on her body was swept away, adding a bit of sharpness. Unfortunately, to Li Hongyuan, there was no threat at all. No matter what you did, he would remain unmoved. Moreover, this was his territory. If you annoyed him, it was possible that he would throw you out. This kind of thing, he would definitely do it. Speaking of how many men Yun Yang had played in the palm of her hand in this lifetime, she had suffered a big loss at Li Hongyuan's hands. She had always wanted to secretly make up for it, but it was very obvious that she had not been successful. As for using his secret to threaten him, she was afraid that as soon as there was a sign of that, he would have already silenced her. Yun Yang was very clear about this point. Ever since she received some information about Li Hongyuan's nature, he directly sent a person to her. Serving was one aspect, but as for the nature of it, everyone was well aware. Yun Yang calmly accepted it and used it without the slightest trace of politeness. Yun Yang couldn't do anything to him. She rolled her eyes, and her gaze fell on Jingwan. Then she thought about the attitude this king of hell had towards her and shifted her gaze. Little girl, do you know who I am? Jingwan hesitated for a moment, but still decided to tell the truth. I heard grandmother mention it. Oh, Luo Chunshir? Why did she mention this servant to you? Yun Yang asked with interest. Because after seeing Yun Yang in Rouge Pavilion, I went back and mentioned it to grandmother. Grandmother said that it must be you. After all, she had a deep impression of you. Speaking of which, she could not expose her own nanny. On the contrary, it was better to let her grandmother take the blame. Yun Yang would not go to her grandmother to ask for confirmation, so the lie would not be exposed. Oh, Luo Chunshir should have a deep impression of this servant. After all, this servant almost pulled your grandfather to bed at that time. Yun Yang giggled like a young girl. Jingwan laughed and shook her head. Things are different from what Yun Yang thought. Grandmother said that Yun Yang has a good memory and has seen a lot. Although you are a girl, you do what men do. You care about the country and the world. Women are not inferior to men. Moreover, your heart is more tender to women than men. Even many women are still moved by you. Grandmother even said that if Yuning was not married, she might also fall in love with you. Did Luo Chunshi really say that? Yun Yang laughed and patted the table. If this is the case, why should I care about Luo Peishan? I should just hook up with Luo Chunshi. Seeing that Yun Yang revealed her true colors, Jingwan coughed softly and chuckled. Yun Yang, image lady. Turning her eyes, Yun Yang revealed a coquettish expression and even gave Jingwan a shy smile. Don't be so pretentious and disgusting here, Li Hongyuan said lightly. Can your wife make you pregnant? Disgusting my ass. Yun Yang retorted without any trace of politeness. Cough. Jingwan choked and coughed, quickly covering her mouth. She was indeed Princess Heong. When she became fierce, she was really. Li Hongyuan glanced at her coldly. Watch your words. If you lead Jiao Jiao astray, this prince will burn down your Rouge Pavilion. Yun Yang suddenly reached out and pulled Jingwan's arm. She rolled up her sleeve and saw the red plum blossoms on it. Seeing this, she sneered. Do you think you are a good person? Would a normal man do such a thing to his fiancée? Burn down my Rouge Pavilion? Right now, your wife has a share. If you have the guts, then go burn it. Li Hongyuan slapped her hand away and rolled down Jingwan's sleeve. If I burn down your Rouge Pavilion, this prince can give her a bigger one. He was very rich and overbearing, very disdainful. Why don't you ask if your wife is willing to be raised by you? Yun Yang felt that this Luo family's third daughter was actually very similar to her in some aspects. She had never thought of relying on a man. This time, Yun Yang simply poked a hornet's nest. How could Jingwan be the same as this old woman? Wan indeed did not rely on a man, but it did not mean that she would accept anything. She did not rely on feelings. She wanted to be equal and never betray each other. Material things were just an additional product on this foundation. If she accepted you as her person, then whatever you gave her, no matter how much it was, she would gladly accept it. The problem now was that Jingwan did not care because she did not care about him. So she did not care about what he gave her. He wanted to raise Jingwan into Jiao Jiao. He wanted to give Jingwan the best and most things in the world. But the most important problem was not solved. At that moment, Yun Yang only felt that she was being targeted by a poisonous snake that could bite her at any time. She would die in an instant. Her scalp was numb and her back was cold. Ah, Yuan. Jingwan reached out and placed her hand on the back of Li Hongyuan's hand. Li Hongyuan instantly returned to his senses. Seeing Jingwan's slender hand, he suddenly hooked his lips into a smile, as if spring had returned to the earth. He turned his hand and held Jingwan's hand. It's been half a day, and you haven't eaten much. Hurry up and eat, otherwise the dishes will be cold. If you have anything to say it after you finish eating. It really made people see how temperamental he could be. But Jingwan did not know why she blurted out his name so quickly, forgetting the awkwardness caused by Yun Yang rolling up her sleeve. What was even more inconceivable was that Jin Qinhuang's heart was so easily appeased by her. It seemed that her influence on him was so deep that it was somewhat inconceivable. Jingwan suppressed the doubts and uneasiness in her heart and nodded her head. Yun Yang narrowed her eyes, containing a deep sharpness, looking at Li Hongyuan. Then, she looked at Jingwan with a profound gaze. She did not tactfully disturb their meal and slowly got up. Come find me after you finish eating, regarding the situation at the western border. Then, her figure swayed as she left. Jiao Jiao, don't worry about her. She's just the owner of a rouge shop. If the situation at the border was not mentioned, she was indeed just the owner of a rouge shop. But when it came to the Qi Yuan dynasty, then she was the one who killed the king of the northern Xiongnu, the one who reversed the deadlock between the Qi Yuan and the northern Xiongnu, Princess Xiang. Also, he seemed to intend to let her know more things about him, those secret, unknown things. When she saw the tip of the iceberg, it was already destined that they could no longer be separated, unless she died, annulling the engagement before marriage, and she should not think about it in the future. Jingwan calmly continued to eat. Digression. https://www.bicken.com/11807/6653136. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. No registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Biku Mobile Reading Website, ambicken.com. Chapter 161. Jingwan continued to eat calmly. As for whether she was really calm or just pretending to be calm, only she herself knew. Li Hongyuan was wholeheartedly focused on feeding Jingwan. Other things, whether it was Princess Heong or the situation at the border, were put aside. What he changed was mainly in the imperial city of Qiyuan. Except for Jingwan, he secretly gathered forces and secretly changed the structure of the imperial court. On the surface, it was not much different from the previous life. The biggest change was probably Luo Peishan. In the previous life, he always kept a low profile and basically did not participate in the fight for the throne. Outside the imperial city, there were naturally officials who were transferred, but everything was under control and there were no problems for the time being. Moreover, there were many spies planted in various countries outside the Qiyuan. However, these spies were only focused on collecting information and were not allowed to act rashly without orders. These spies did not even know who their real masters were. So far, the situation outside the Qiyuan had basically not changed. Therefore, even if Princess Heong didn't tell him about the situation at the western border, he also knew what was going on. It was just a small problem, but this small problem originated from the internal affairs of Qiyuan. In his previous life, if it wasn't solved properly, this small problem would lead to a big disaster. In the end, these soldiers united with the local military families who had been in business for 2 or 3 generations and became the local bullies, oppressing the ordinary people. As a result, the matter was reported to the court. His father sent people to deal with it, and Old Ninth and Old Tenth, who had just entered the imperial court, became imperial envoys. However, these 2 people were not young, and their respective families were also ambitious. They secretly urged them to do all kinds of things, and naturally, they had different opinions on this matter. In the end, because they could not reach an agreement, the problem was not solved for a long time. Due to the instigation of people with ulterior motives, it caused a riot. One of the emperor's sons, the Prince of Qiyuan, was injured in the riot, and the other was arrested. The imperial court was divided into 2 factions. One faction advocated pacification, and the other faction advocated suppression. On the surface, Emperor Lucheng was an emperor who did not like to fight. In the end, he made the decision to pacify the people, but he could not tolerate the culprits who caused the riot. After all, this matter made him lose face. However, when the imperial envoys were still on the way, the conflict at the border escalated again. The angry mob cut off one of Old Tenth's arms. The local garrison took the initiative to use bloody measures to suppress the riot. When there was suppression, there would naturally be resistance. However, the other party was a civilian after all. Even if they posed a threat to the garrison in the beginning, the consequences were self-evident. Moreover, the garrison was hot-tempered. In the end, he ordered the old, the weak, the women, and the children to be killed. One could imagine how big of a shock it caused. More importantly, the news of this matter was leaked from the beginning. Under the arrangement of people with ulterior motives, almost everyone in Qiyuan knew about it, as if it had grown wings. This caused the people's hearts to be unstable, and even the ruling status of a Li dynasty was questioned. When it rains, it pours. Not long after that, there was a big flood in the south, and millions of people suffered. Because of the inaction of the officials, there were very few problems with the embankments. In the end, Emperor Lucheng was the one who took the blame for this disaster. Before Emperor Lucheng's decree of guilt was issued, the victims revolted and robbed the local granaries. Moreover, the rich families and many of the officials did not have a good ending. In the end, the army was naturally deployed. It did not take long, about a month or so, to quell the riot. Fortunately, other places were already prepared, and the enemy country did not take the opportunity to attack Qiyuan. After all, even if there was internal strife in Qiyuan, it was still under control. To a certain extent, Qiyuan was also a huge monster. If they wanted to take a bite out of it, it would depend on whether they had the ability to do so. After this incident, Emperor Lucheng's face was gloomy for a long time. He originally thought that the enemy country was behind this, but in the end it was completely an internal strife. In his previous life, Li Hongyuan was far less favored than he was now. Because he was outstanding and had a good reputation, he was qualified to compete for the throne. His father should have felt guilty towards him, but because he was outstanding, he was not liked. Because he was a Japanese, he was seen as an ominous person, and he was not qualified to covet the throne. However, he did not know that, and he was quite sad at that time. After this incident, his father disliked him even more. At first, he was puzzled. What did this have to do with him? Gradually, some rumors about his birth mother quietly spread. His birth mother was from the Pei family, the most powerful family in Jiangnan, and she was the daughter of the first wife. The Pei family was loyal to the royal family of the previous dynasty. The Pei family was not willing to be loyal to the new emperor, so they reached an agreement with the new emperor and retreated to Jiangnan. It was said that the Pei family was involved in the riot at the beginning and the later uprising. However, there was no evidence. It should be known that Taizu had personally decreed that unless the Pei family committed a great crime of rebellion, the emperor of the Li family could not embarrass the Pei family. Without evidence, it meant that the Pei family could not be touched. Even if they wanted to secretly do something, it was not so easy. Because the Pei family was flourishing in Jiangnan, except for not entering the court as an official, they were involved in all other aspects. In particular, the Pei family had produced many famous scholars. These people had many disciples, and many of these disciples had entered the court as officials. Did you think that the Pei family had no influence in the court because they did not enter the court? Naive. Moreover, the Pei family had a high reputation among the people. Touching the Pei family was equivalent to touching the entire Jiangnan, and a large number of officials might be dismissed. It was even more difficult to deal with than the Sun family, which had Duke Dinghua. No emperor would like such a large and uncontrollable clan. Li Hongyuan, a son with the bloodline of the Pei clan, was naturally the target of his anger at this time. To some extent, this was the beginning of the change of Li Hongyuan's fate. But now, when Princess Heang learned a little through her Rouge Pavilion, Li Hongyuan had already arranged everything. He still did not touch the overall situation, but only controlled the person who fanned the flames behind the scenes and planned everything. He would probably be sent to the capital soon. Li Hongyuan wanted to see if the person who was said to have died early in his previous life was a member of the Pei family. Mother's family? Oh, the tyrant Li Hongyuan had cut off more than half of the branches of the Pei family. The ones who went to deal with this matter were probably Old Ninth and Old Tenth. He had already removed the biggest disaster, but he did not know what their ending would be. If it was good, they would probably return with meritorious service. If it was bad, they would probably come back after messing things up. They would probably be trained and then abandoned by the people they relied on. Their lives would be over. As for the flood in the south, he had already made preparations 2 years ago. He had already strengthened the dam in the key areas. Although it was impossible to completely eliminate the flood, the serious consequences of the disaster would be reduced by at least 60%. As for the people who wanted to take advantage of this situation to cause trouble, he had already set up a trap. As long as they dared to make a move, they would immediately become a turtle in a jar. Jingwan saw that Li Hongyuan was lost in thought, so she did not disturb him. However, She saw him drinking cup after cup, as if he didn't know what was going on. Moreover, he hadn't eaten anything in the first place, so it would definitely hurt his stomach. After all, he was her fiancé. Previously, they had hugged and lingered together, and he was very indulgent towards her. She hesitated for a moment. "Your Highness, drinking on an empty stomach is harmful to the body. It's better to drink less. Otherwise, you should eat something first." Li Hongyuan looked at her with a smile, as if he had never been distracted. "Jiao Jiao, are you worried about this prince?" Jingwan also smiled, and there was no trace of the pitiful appearance from before. "If your Highness wants to think so, it's not impossible. It's not easy to hear good words from Jiao Jiao's mouth. All right, I won't drink anymore." He casually threw the cup away. He picked up his chopsticks and hastily ate something. "Jiao Jiao, are you done eating?" Generally speaking, if the other party was done eating, she would eat well. If the other party wasn't done eating, she would continue to eat with them. However, when she thought about how they were still unmarried and how much he indulged her, she chose to be willful this time. She nodded. This subject's daughter is done eating. Li Hongyuan put down his chopsticks and approached Jingwan with a teasing smile. "Jiao Jiao, you're putting out all the rules now. You weren't like this before. You were pinching and biting this prince. And you even had the guts to tell this prince to shut up?" Jingwan blushed. What was she talking about that she shouldn't talk about? What? Did he want to settle the score with her now? Jingwan didn't speak and just looked at him quietly. In the end, she wasn't as conservative as the local girls. This matter had already happened, and she had already been embarrassed. There was no point in continuing to hold on to it. Li Hongyuan was worried that if he annoyed her, it wouldn't be easy to eat her in the future. He reached out and pinched her face. "This prince really doesn't know what to do with you." Without saying much, Eunuch Mu immediately called for someone to bring water to wash her hands and rinse her mouth. Li Hongyuan already wanted to help Jingwan wash her hands, but Jingwan avoided and refused. He raised his eyebrows and didn't say anything. "Forget about the others, just wear these Buddhist prayer beads." Li Hongyuan took off the Buddhist prayer beads and wrapped them around Jingwan's wrist. "Let's go, this prince will send you back." In fact, if he could, he wanted to keep Jingwan for a while longer. But it wasn't a short time. If he annoyed old Madame Luo, it would be disadvantageous for him to see Jingwan before the marriage. Although they had done more intimate things, but this kind of intimacy still made Jingwan somewhat at a loss. They had only met a few times before, so it didn't make sense for their relationship to suddenly become so close. Although it was mostly Jin Qinhuang's one-sided actions, he seemed to be very familiar with her. Everything he did seemed natural and casual. No matter who saw him, they wouldn't feel that he was a stranger. Other than this subject's third sister-in-law, is this how Wang Ye treats all of his previous fiancés? Jingwan curiously asked. Really, it was just purely out of curiosity. Li Hongyuan glanced at her and indifferently said, "Ben Wang is not familiar with them. I haven't seen more than half of them." So the topic stopped and didn't continue. Li Hongyuan held her hand and matched her pace, walking slower. The courtyard next door is about the same size as this one. In front is Rouge Pavilion. This was originally Yin Yang's place. I want to renovate it. Jingwan knew that Jin Qinhuang was revealing some secrets to her. So, she only had ears and not a mouth. "Jiao Jiao, you and I are together. You don't have to be so careful. My matters, there is nothing that you can't know. Many thanks for Wang Ye's love, but this subject's daughter feels that it is not the right time." Li Hongyuan helplessly sighed and didn't say anything more. Getting on the carriage, Li Hongyuan still pulled her into his arms and hugged her. It was just a simple hug. After sending Jingwan back to Luo Jia, he saw her enter the door and her figure disappear. Only then did he let someone drive the carriage away. He didn't go to find Yin Yang. Instead, he directly returned to the Wangfu. In front of the gate of the Wangfu, there was an honored guest waiting for him. This old subject greets Wang Ye. The Grand Secretary came to the Yamen very early today. Li Hongyuan sat in the carriage. He just lifted the curtain and didn't have any intention of getting off. There's nothing to do today. Therefore, the officials of Chiyuan were relatively free. After finishing their work, they could occasionally leave early. What business do you have with Ben Wang? If Wang Ye is dissatisfied with my daughter, you can ask His Majesty to withdraw the order. There is no need to humiliate her like this. Ruan Ruizhong said as calmly as possible. Heaven knows how distressed he was when he returned home and saw his wife and daughter crying until their eyes were swollen. Li Hongyuan sneered. Ruan Daran has always been dissatisfied with Ben Wang. You wanted to be a good subject, so you didn't resist the decree. Why should Ben Wang be a disobedient son? You flaunted yourself as a loyal subject of the country. For this, you can give up your beloved daughter's happiness. But you want Ben Wang to bear the reputation of being disloyal and unfilial. Do you really think that it doesn't matter if Ben Wang is covered in dirty water? Ruan Ruizhong, don't be too obvious about your double loyalty. Ruan Ruizhong's old face reddened. Li Hongyuan's words were not completely correct, but also not completely wrong. His lips trembled. In the end, my daughter is your fiancée. Wang Ye knows that she has always admired you. So he didn't talk about marriage. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653137. HTML. Click here to report an error. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bicken.com Mobile Edition. Chapter 162. Even if Li Hongyuan's words implied that his daughter was looking for humiliation, Ruan Ruizhong had nothing to say. That's right, his daughter was just a concubine. In the end, she was just a concubine. And from the looks of it, the main character didn't seem to want her very much. It was also true that he indulged her every time he saw her silently crying in front of him without making a fuss. He would feel distressed. Then, without exception, his heart would soften every time. However, from the bottom of his heart, he looked down on Jin Qinhuang, thinking that he was just a big fire pit. On this point, he firmly refused his daughter, always waiting for her to give up. Then he delayed again and again, resulting in today's bad consequences. His daughter was beautiful, had a good temperament, was talented, and was even a good cook. Apart from her lack of temperament, in other aspects, he wasn't boasting, but he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to find a girl more outstanding than her. Originally, there were a lot of talented young men to choose from, and in the future, she wouldn't be bad. In the end, why did she have to take a fancy to someone that everyone else avoided? Just like him, he couldn't figure it out. It wasn't like he had to go to the Gong Prince's residence. Why did he have to get involved at this critical juncture? Li Hongyuan saw his constantly changing complexion and could probably guess what he was thinking. Ruan Ruizhong was born to mix in with the officialdom. Therefore, the ups and downs of the officialdom, to him, didn't affect him at all. Overcoming 5 difficulties and defeating 6 generals to reach the position of Grand Secretary of the Cabinet. All of this showed his extraordinary ability and extraordinary wisdom. However, such a man also had a fatal weakness. Because of his self-confidence, he was conceited, thinking that he would succeed in every endeavor. This was also true for women. So his second wife was obedient to him in every way, taking care of the inner residence properly, treating the children of the first wife as her own, and treating the children born of concubines as if they were her own. In his opinion, this was how it should be. That woman did a good job. So he gave her all his trust, never intervening in the inner residence, never paying attention to it. So naturally, he didn't know what kind of scene was behind the orderly appearance of his family's inner residence. In the end, it wasn't that he trusted his wife, but that he believed in his own charm. However, why didn't he think about it? What right did he have? Her daughter-in-law was older than her. After marrying into the family, not only did she become a stepmother, but she also became a step-grandmother. You would find it too old to be a father. How could a teenage girl not have any complaints? Even the emperor, who ruled the world, did not have such confidence, right? Now, his wife was like a young married woman. When the two of them stood together, not to mention father and daughter, people would believe that they were grandfather and granddaughter. Not to mention other things. Could he still get hard to satisfy his wife? Although it was normal for a woman to be alone after 30, and if that woman was really a good wife and mother, then it was fine. However, Li Hongyuan, who knew her nature, sometimes even maliciously thought, our powerful Grand Secretary. Do you know how many green hats you've worn? Ruan Ruizhong, who had been a winner in life for decades, ended up having his entire family executed in his twilight years. First, it was revealed that his stepwife had an affair with his son, and it seemed that they didn't even have the same son. Then, it was revealed that the youngest daughter of his first wife was not his biological daughter, and belonged to some unknown man. Then, it was revealed that a letter of treason was found in his study, of course. When these things happened, Li Hongyuan had already been forced to leave the capital. Qi Yuan was in the midst of a war at the border. When he returned, the Ruan family's matter had already come to an end. There was no way to know the details. He only found out by chance that Ruan Fangfei had married someone else and did not know where she went. Plus, she was not Ruan Ruizhong's biological daughter, so he did not pursue her whereabouts. In this life, because treason was not something that could be done in a short time, and Ruan Fangfei was far more persistent in him than in his previous life, Li Hongyuan had carefully investigated from the beginning. The results he obtained were really unexpected. Ruan Ruizhong, who had been shrewd all his life, fell into the hands of a woman. He was cuckolded and took the blame for someone else. He probably did not know what had happened even when he died. When he found out the truth, Li Hongyuan suspected that Ruan Ruizhong's stepwife might not have died in his previous life. She had hidden it well for more than 20 years. Why would she suddenly reveal everything? These things might just be to divert other people's attention to hide her true identity. If the water was mixed up, it would be easier for her to escape. Ruan Ruizhong was so conceited, and Ruan Fangfei was quite similar to him in this aspect. Therefore, Li Hongyuan was a little surprised that Ruan Fangfei was not his daughter. However, whether she was or not, it did not matter to him. Fortunately, Ruan Ruizhong was not like that when it came to political affairs. Otherwise, he would have probably fallen into a trap long ago. Seeing that there was no doubt about his ability, Li Hongyuan would definitely keep him for a few more years. Didn't he want to work hard for Qi Yuan until he died? If he did not squeeze all of his value out of him, wouldn't he be letting him down? However, he had to let him have a taste of falling into the dust. He had to let him know the truth bit by bit and see what kind of things the mother and daughter he held in the palm of his hand were. At that time, the expression of the Grand Secretary of the Cabinet should be very interesting. Li Hongyuan leaned lazily. He was in a good mood now, so he calmly added another stab to the Grand Secretary. Ruan Ruizhong, you don't like this prince, but do you think this prince likes you and Ruan Fangfei? Only you think that your daughter is a national beauty, a rare commodity worth hoarding. You treat her as a treasure, but in this prince's eyes, she is not even a blade of grass. In fact, you should be glad that you did not compromise and ask Imperial Father to grant you a marriage a year or two earlier. Otherwise, you and your daughter would have lost all face at that time. Did you know that if your good daughter enters the imperial family, she can't be the official wife because of Master Liaoqin's order? She wants to marry this prince wholeheartedly, so she will live the life of a concubine for the rest of her life. Ruan Ruizhong was shocked speechless, as if he had been struck by a bolt from the blue. Li Hongyuan told him that he was not worried that he would say anything. It was impossible for him to ask his imperial father for confirmation, and it was even more impossible for him to tell his good wife and daughter. However, even if he said it, it didn't matter. So what if he already knew about it? Leaving behind Lord Ruan, who was stunned for a long time, Li Hongyuan returned home. However, when Yun Yang found out that Li Hongyuan had sent her little sweetheart home, he did not even think of looking for her. Who knew if she would fly into a rage? However, even Emperor Lucheng could not do anything to her. let alone her hidden grand aunt. When Jingwan returned to the Luo residence, she had completely changed her clothes. However, the people who saw her along the way did not seem to have any abnormalities. Everyone was even curious as to why she came back so late. Back then, when Luo Jingying had sneaked out and returned, she had even changed back into her original outfit. She had been hiding all the way, but in the end, things had turned out this way. Now that Jingwan was so open and above board, no one suspected anything. This was the biggest difference between being liked and disliked by the elders of the inner residence. When Jingwan returned to the elegant begonia residence, Sun Yijia had been waiting for a long time. When she saw that Jingwan had changed from head to toe, she would never pay attention to how expensive the things on her body were. Instead, she would pay attention to the problem behind this matter. Just imagine, a girl went out alone with her fiancé for more than 2 hours. Moreover, she had completely changed her clothes. Anyone who knew a little would understand what this meant. If Sun Yijia did not have a good upbringing, she would not just be a little angry and irritable. When she saw that someone was more nervous than her, the knot in Jingwan's heart gradually disappeared. The lingering touch on her body also faded a lot. On the contrary, she felt quite happy. She smiled and said, "Sister-in-law, what are you doing? What are you smiling about? Look at the situation now. How can you still smile?" Sun Yijia could not help but pinch her. Jingwan smiled and dodged. At the same time, she grabbed her hand. "You're speaking so seriously. Is the sky collapsing or the earth sinking?" When Sun Yijia saw her reaction, she thought that she was overthinking. Then, she subconsciously reached out to pull Jingwan's collar. She only pulled it open a little. Her face was as black as the bottom of a pot. "I knew it. How can that bastard be a gentleman?" Jingwan hurriedly pulled her hand away. She really wanted to call her ancestor. She knew that she had good intentions, but she should at least take it easy. This was only her. If it were someone else, wouldn't it be embarrassing to expose such an embarrassing matter in public? Wouldn't that make them want to die of shame? Sun Yijia also belatedly realized that something was wrong, but she couldn't help but worry. Mimi, other than this, is there anything else that does it hurt there?" She leaned closer and lowered her voice to ask hesitantly. Jingwan was speechless. But at this time, she could only pretend to be stupid. With a puzzled face, she asked, "Where does it hurt?" "It doesn't hurt anywhere." Sun Yijia breathed a sigh of relief. "It doesn't hurt anywhere. There's nothing at all." But she muttered, "At least that bastard still has some humanity." Although this body's age was younger than Sun Yijia, in reality, it treated her as a younger sister. However, this sister-in-law was also worth it. After she approved of you, she would also treat you wholeheartedly. Not to mention other things, when she was bestowed marriage to Jin Qinhuang, she did not say a word. But when it came to her own head, she had always been nervous. Even if she couldn't do anything, she still had to accept this favor. "Jia Mimi, don't worry. It's really fine." Sun Yijia was like a frosted eggplant, wilting in the blink of an eye. Ever since she married Jinghua, Wan Mimi didn't call her Jia Mimi anymore. This was really comforting her. She was a little annoyed. "Maybe I shouldn't have told you these things. The more I say, the earlier you worry about the future. If you didn't know, you could still live a carefree life before you got married. But now, the things that should be known and the things that shouldn't be known will be known sooner or later. Even if it wasn't sister-in-law who told me, it would have been someone else. In reality, it's better to know from you than from someone else. After all, if I wasn't mentally prepared and was suddenly ridiculed by someone, I might not even know what was going on. So, I should actually thank Jia Mimi." Sun Yijia rolled her eyes at her. "You can keep comforting me." Jingwan pulled her to the side and sat down. "Sister-in-law, I feel that your mood seems a little unstable these days. Why don't you call the food doctor to take a look?" "Really? I don't think so. It's you who thinks I'm annoying." Jingwan was helpless and didn't mention it. On the other hand, Sun Yijia's wet nurse's expression was a little strange. The two of them didn't see it, but Mama Gong saw it. Third young madam. This servant knows a little about medicine and can accurately feel some common pulses. Why don't you let this servant take a look at you and treat it as a check of your pulse? That's good. Now that there's a result, this lass won't make up stories about me. As she spoke, she raised her hand and showed Mama Gong her wrist. As soon as Nanny Gong put her finger on her pulse, she felt that something was wrong. However, she couldn't be careless about this kind of thing. After a while, she asked her to use her other hand. Her serious attitude made the people around her nervous. Gong Mimi, is there something wrong? Young madam's appetite hasn't been good these days, and she's been feeling nauseous. I'm worried that she has eaten something bad, but young madam refuses to ask the food doctor to take a look. Sun Ijia's wet nurse couldn't care less at this moment. After all, she hadn't been married into the Luo family for long. If she mobilized so many people to ask for a doctor, she was worried that others would think that she was being nosy. Sister-in-law, this is wrong. How can you hide this kind of thing? It's just that my appetite hasn't been very good. It's just a small matter. Perhaps it's because the weather is hot. I've been suffering from summer. Third young madam, you're wrong this time. It's not just a small matter. It's a big matter. Seeing that everyone was nervous, especially her young lady who was asking about what was wrong, Mama Gong didn't keep them in suspense. Third young madam didn't eat something bad. She's pregnant. She's been pregnant for more than a month. I think she got pregnant a few days after the wedding. It's a joyous occasion. That's impossible. Sun Yijia was stunned for a moment before she immediately denied it. She got pregnant on her period last time. Mama Gong looked like she understood. Even if third young madam was young and didn't know anything, her wet nurse by her side should know. So this was the problem. This kind of situation does happen. Some people will have this kind of situation in the first month of pregnancy. It's just that it's much less than normal and it doesn't last that long. Gong Mimi, now that you mention it, I'm afraid this matter is not far from truth. Sun Ijia's wet nurse looked very excited and a little upset. I've heard of this kind of situation. Why didn't I think of it? My good sister, is there anything wrong with third young madam's condition? From third young madam's pulse, there's no problem. However, it's best to ask the estate's physician to take a look. Yes, you're right. I'll ask the estate's physician to take a look. Sun Yijia placed her hand on her lower abdomen. She was still in disbelief. However, when she saw her wet nurse about to leave excitedly, she quickly reached out to pull her. Wet nurse, because she was pulling her, Sun Yijia's body suddenly moved forward, scaring her quite a bit. My good girl, please slow down a bit. Because she was so nervous, Sun Yijia was not as nervous. Wet nurse, don't be anxious. It's better to report this matter to mother and let her make the decision. If you go excitedly to ask the physician for help, won't the whole estate know about it? People nowadays only reported the good news after the pregnancy was stable. Before that, except for a few people who knew about it, most people kept it a secret. Go directly to grandmother. Mother doesn't care about things. If you tell her as soon as possible, she probably won't be able to hide anything without giving her time to recover. She won't care about it. Instead, she'll be glad. Jingwan said, Qingzhu, go to grandmother's place and ask the estate's physician to come here. Tell him that I'm feeling a little unwell and that he needs to take my pulse. Yes, I'll go right away. Sun Yijia's wet nurse thanked Jingwan repeatedly. This is my sister-in-law. The child in her belly is my nephew and niece. There's no need to thank me. Jingwan looked at Sun Yijia with a smile and teased, You got pregnant a few days after your wedding. Sister-in-law, are you better than my brother? Your mouth is really infuriating. Sun Yijia was embarrassed and angry. I'm wrong. You're pregnant with twins now. Take it easy. Jingwan grabbed her hand. But sister-in-law, when you're feeling unwell, the people around you listen to you and don't ask for a physician. What about my brother? Does he also listen to you? Don't blame your brother. He's been a little busy recently. I didn't let him find out. What's there to be busy with? What's there to be busy with? If he can't finish it, he'll postpone it. How can he even neglect his wife? Jingwan was dissatisfied. Sunny Jia didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Who was to blame for this? She was the one who had been busy all day long. She just wanted her to be less busy, but she was the one who was playing the blame game. However, it wasn't a big deal to begin with. Why did little sister Wan think that her third brother had done something unforgivable? Was it that exaggerated? Qingmei, hurry and ask third young master to come over. Ask him to put those things aside. His wife and child are the most important thing now. Seeing Jingwan's tough attitude, Sun Yijia couldn't say anything to stop her. Because the couple's courtyard was just next door, Luo Jinghua came very quickly. It was obvious that he ran over directly. When Luo Jinghua appeared, he only had eyes for Sun Yijia. He didn't seem to see anything else. He carefully asked Sun Yijia if it was true. He looked very stupid. However, no one would laugh at him for becoming a father-to-be. Madame Luo came very quickly. However, she was someone who had been through a lot. Although she was happy, she definitely wouldn't lose her composure. She excused Sun Yijia from bowing and took Jingwan's hand out of habit. She looked at it until Jingwan couldn't help blushing. She then looked away, sat down, and looked at Sun Yijia. Qing, Zhu has already told me clearly. Yijia, since you've married into the Luo family, there's no need to be so distant. Your health is the most important thing. No matter whether it's a big or small problem, you should call a doctor as soon as possible. This time, it was also Wan's sudden suggestion. Otherwise, if it were up to you, and Jinghua, what would you do if you accidentally hurt the child? And Jinghua, no matter what, you can't neglect your own wife. The husband and wife were very embarrassed by Madame Luo's words. They couldn't help blushing and repeatedly promised that there wouldn't be a next time. Fortunately, the resident's doctor rushed over at this time. Only then did they heave a sigh of relief. The resident's doctor took their pulse. Nurse Gong's diagnosis was correct. Both mother and child were safe. Madame Luo also couldn't help but reveal a happy expression. This was the fourth generation of the Luo family. Jingda's daughter-in-law always had problems. This was very good. Naturally, it was worth being happy about. Moreover, she got pregnant so soon. It was a good sign. However, not long after they were happy, someone barged in and shouted, "Madam, something big happened." Madame Luo's face darkened. "Why are you so flustered? This is a lady's courtyard. How dare a man like you casually barge in?" The manservant's face paled. "Madam, please forgive me. Madam, please forgive me." "What happened?" "Third master. Third master fell off a horse and broke his leg. Also, his waist was stepped on by a horse." Digression. The benefits in the group were already posted. What were the little angels waiting for? The group number was at the top of the comment section. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653140. HTML. Please click here to report. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com, Bikugo mobile reading website, mbicken.com. Chapter 163. Not to mention the others, even Madame Luo was shocked. This was a sign of paralysis, even if she didn't die. Madame Luo calmed down and asked, "Where's your third master?" Replying to Madame Luo, "He should be entering the door soon. I came back first to report. As soon as I saw Madame Luo, I went to the main courtyard to report to you. When I learned that you came to third Mrs. Courtyard, I was anxious and chased after you." Madame Luo immediately made a decision. "Old doctor, I'll have to trouble you to go to the third branch. This old one will understand the matter clearly and go there immediately. As for the matter here, I ask the old doctor to take care of it." Presumably, Madame Lu also sent someone to invite him, but he also missed the opportunity. At this moment, that servant was probably also on the way to Begonia House. Madame Luo is too polite. Since he was the consecrated doctor, he must keep his mouth shut in addition to doing things for the Luo family. However, she had just found out that she was pregnant, and such a disaster had happened over there. After all, it was not a good sign. Madame Luo, this old man is not particularly good at treating this kind of illness. This old man suggests that you ask the Imperial Hospital for help. It's more appropriate. Well, it was still necessary to have self-awareness. Many thanks for the old doctor's reminder. She turned around and asked her mother to go back to the main courtyard to get Luo Peishan's invitation. The old doctor cupped his hands and left first. After he left, Madame Luo began to interrogate the whole story. You should tell me everything clearly. Where did Third Miss fall off the horse and why? Now that something happened to Third Miss, you people who serve her can't escape the blame. The servant trembled and began to narrate. Today, Third Master invited someone to go out of the city to ride a horse. When they arrived at Prince Kang's farmstead, they were interested and said that they wanted to go hunting. So they went into the forest. Third Master and the others ran very fast. By the time this little one chased after them, something had already happened. Madame Luo frowned. Your Third Master doesn't like to ride horses, let alone hunt. Why would he participate in it for no reason? Who took the lead? Moreover, it's not his turn to rest today. Old Madam, it was Prince Kang's close associate who led the group. There were also several young masters from other families. There were a total of 7 or 8 people, all of whom were more or less related to Prince Kang. Third young master said that it was not good to refuse, so he changed the day of his holiday with the people from the Yamen. This was a disaster waiting to happen. However, Madame Luo suddenly realized that there must be something wrong with this. It seemed obvious who did it. Moreover, Prince Kang also had a motive to do this to the third prince. The third prince used to rely on him, but now his legitimate daughter had entered Prince Rui's mansion. Moreover, he had a bad temper and dared to betray him. Naturally, he would want to make up for it, or even kill the chicken to warn the monkey. However, Madame Luo's intuition told her that this matter was not so simple. Prince Kang's brain was not as smart as Prince Rui's, but he would not be so obvious. However, she could not rule out the possibility that he deliberately arranged this, which would make people think that someone was framing him. As for the specifics, he would have to rely on his master to investigate. Why did you send your third master back? Why didn't you go straight to the clinic after entering the city? The servant swallowed his saliva. Old Madam, they refused to take over. She understood. They were too seriously injured and were afraid that he would die in their clinic. Under normal circumstances, relatives would vent their anger on them. This was because they were worried that it would bring disaster to the clinic. However, none of the people who went with him came out to vouch for him. They went back after entering the city. Madame Luo sneered. A group of cowards. However, did they think that they could get away with this? If a man stood out to take charge, the Luo family might not do anything. However, since they were cowards, then don't blame the Luo family for being impolite. Go directly to the Yamen of the Ministry of Personnel and report this matter to my master. Yes. The servant hurriedly left. Madame Luo turned her head to look at Sun Ijia, who was rubbing her stomach with a pale face, and Luo Jinghua, who was standing beside her with his mouth tightly pursed. Don't let your imagination run wild. This has nothing to do with your child. However, Ijia, you can't report the good news to your mother for the time being. You have to rest for a while. As for the food, you don't have a small kitchen in your courtyard, so you can use one that's 1 won. It's close, so it won't be inconvenient. Similarly, I'll build one for you after this period of time. Later, I'll have someone send you some money and send someone to buy it outside. Each branch had their own custom of buying things in private, so it wouldn't be conspicuous. Sun Ijia was naturally grateful for Madame Luo's arrangement. She was afraid that her child would be known as a jinx. However, she said, "Grandmother, there's no need for the money. Granddaughter-in-law, Madame Luo waved her hand to interrupt her. What the family should give you naturally can't be less. Every daughter-in-law of the Luo family is the same. Your own dowry is another matter. How you want to use it is also your own business. How can you confuse it with the portion that you deserve? You should pay special attention to this point. Only take it out when it's time to take it out, and when it's time to accept it, you must accept it. If you only take it out and don't take it in, after a long time, people will take it for granted, and it will also increase the appetite of some people. When you don't take out, it will instead become your fault. Thank you for your teachings, grandmother. An elder who didn't mean well for her absolutely wouldn't say such words. All right, hurry and wash off the makeup on your face. Jingbua, take good care of your wife. I'll go to the third branch to take a look. With Jingda's daughter-in-law as an example, Madame Luo now couldn't bear to see a pregnant woman put on makeup. Moreover, Sunny Jia didn't use makeup powder. Who knew if there was something harmful in it? Although she knew that if Wan dared to use something on her face, she should have already thought about it. Normally, there wouldn't be any problems. But now, both mother and son were delicate, so she had to be careful. Who in the Luo family didn't know about little Wangshi's matter? Most likely, many relatives also knew. Only then did the husband and wife realize it. They hurriedly asked someone to fetch water to wash their faces. After that, they wouldn't be able to put on makeup for a long time. Originally, every time Sun Yijia came back from going out, she would wash her face immediately. But today, she was worried about Jingwan and was anxious, so she forgot to do it. Grandmother, I'll go too. Jingwan followed. Madame Luo glanced at her. Change your clothes and come back. Although these words were very normal, Jingwan couldn't help but blush. She felt uncomfortable that everything was seen through. Moreover, third uncle was seriously injured, and she didn't know if he could survive. Her clothes were indeed a little delicate. Grandmother, go ahead first. I'll come after I change my clothes. Madame Luo nodded and left with her people. Jingbua, let's go and take a look too? After Sun Yijia finished washing her face, she whispered to him. Luo Jingbua frowned subconsciously. It's probably a busy time over there. We won't be able to see third uncle. Also, what if you get hurt? I guess the younger generation of each branch hasn't received the news yet. Let's wait. If something happens, grandmother will probably send someone to inform us. Also, if little sister wants to go, she has always been reliable. Even if grandmother forgets, she definitely won't. Sun Yijia thought about it and agreed. The child in her belly was the most important thing now. Jingwan changed her clothes and came out of the room. She was dressed plainly, but it didn't affect her temperament at all. Luo Jingbua reminded her twice. Jingwan nodded. Don't worry. Sister-in-law, just take care of yourself and don't worry about anything else. When Jingwan arrived at the third branch, eldest Aunt Madame Wang, fourth Aunt Madame Wu, and her mother were all there. As for the other women, they must be third uncle's concubines. Ah, this number was really large. The other three brothers probably only had this many concubines, right? Grandfather might not like third uncle, but in terms of teaching, there shouldn't be too much of a difference. But why was the final result like this? Was it really because of their own problems? These women cried endlessly, but with grandmother outside, they didn't dare to cry too loudly. They only sobbed softly. She wondered if these women were really sad or worried about their future. If Luo Rongping died, the Luo family wouldn't ignore them. But if they didn't have children, they would be in danger. Among these people, there were no good concubines or noble concubines. If Madame Lu was ruthless, she could sell them all. Therefore, they didn't want Luo Rongping to die the most. That's right, they just didn't want him to die. Anyway, when he was well, they were also neglected and paralyzed in bed. Jingwan didn't see concubine Huan, who made third uncle and third aunt completely fall out with each other. Concubine Huan was probably serving in the room. She was also pregnant now, so she wasn't afraid of accidentally bumping into her. Speaking of which, these women's clothes were really very ordinary. To be honest, Jingwan felt that they couldn't even compare to the maids by her side. compared to the other branches, the third branch was indeed a lot poorer, but it shouldn't be to this extent, right? Was it because Madame Lu embezzled, or they really didn't have the money to support them? Maybe it was both. In the Luo family, each man's concubines were only given to 3 people. If there were more, they would raise them themselves. Luo Rongping obviously didn't have the money to raise them, but he raised so many of them. After a while, he threw them aside and didn't care about them. What was going on? It was no wonder that Madame Lu was so ruthless to them. As for why she didn't sell them, not only did it cost money to raise them, but it also made people uncomfortable. Perhaps, as the saying goes, if the old doesn't go, the new won't come. Madame Lu probably wanted Luo Rongping to see. There was already a pile of them in the room. How to raise them? In the beginning, he had not been able to take out anything decent to please the beauty. Based on his character of wanting to save face and putting up a false front, he would probably be too embarrassed to bring anything into the room. As for asking him to sell it himself, don't joke around. This kind of losing face. If he gave them away, he could still make friends with them, but he would probably be beaten half to death by Luo Peishan. Seeing Jingwan, Madame Zhang hurriedly came up. Wanwan, I just heard that the doctor came from your place. Are you feeling unwell? Why didn't you tell me? Mother, I'm fine. I probably used some ice last night. The doctor has already seen me. I don't need to take any medicine. I was going to tell you, but I didn't have time. Madame Zhang was relieved when she heard this. I know you suffer from summer, but it's still early from the hottest time. You can't use the ice basin now. Otherwise, when it's the hottest time, the basin will still be hot. It's not good for a girl to be exposed to too much cold air. I know, Mother. There's no need. Madame Zhang still wanted to say something, but Jingwan gently squeezed her hand, so she swallowed back her words. Jingwan respectfully greeted the others. Needless to say, Madame Wu had always liked Jingwan, and Madame Wang was grateful to Jingwan because of Madame Wang's matter. Naturally, they all hurriedly asked her to get up. In the Luo family, no one else received this treatment except her. Jingwan sat next to Madame Luo. Grandmother, how is the situation? Madame Luo's face was cold and solemn. It's worse than expected. The doctor is not sure. However, even if a divine doctor comes, the best-case scenario is that he will be paralyzed in bed. The worst-case scenario, needless to say, everyone knew that if something went wrong, the Luo family would have to hold a funeral. Jingwan also did not expect that her third uncle would fall into such a situation. Although Luo Jingying did not get along with her, Madame Lu was scheming and could not bear to see others doing well, and Luo Rongping was utilitarian and wanted to climb up the social ladder. None of them were likable. However, Jingwan only disliked them, but she did not hate them. One had to know that it took effort to hate a person. Jingwan was too lazy to waste her energy on them. Therefore, she did not want them to die. What was the saying in her previous life? If they are not doing well, I will be relieved. Jingwan had a bit of this mentality. As for these 3 people, if they had not already arrived at their bad destination, then they were on their way to their destination. Jingwan would not go against her heart and say that she was sad about her third uncle's situation. She just felt a little sad. However, the 3 little children of the third branch were all there. Only the legitimate son, Luo Xiaoba, was not there. As for the eldest son, Luo Jingming, he should still be attending classes at the Imperial College. Where is Xiaoba? Is he still studying at home? It's better to have someone bring him back. Madame Luo nodded. Yes, we should bring him back. Otherwise, if something happens. Also, Jingming, go to the Imperial College and inform him to come back quickly. Also, go inform Area. The people of the third branch could not leave at this time. Madame Luo directly sent someone to pick up Luo Xiaoba, but the person who came to pick him up came back very quickly. However, when she saw his appearance, Madame Luo could not help but burn with anger. Not only was his body dirty, but he was also crying. This child was already 9 years old, not 3 years old. How did he end up like this? What exactly is going on here? Where is the person who served him? Where the hell did he go? Madame Luo was quite fond of the children of a third branch, except for Luo Jingying. Madame Lu's treatment of her two children could be said to be completely opposite. Not only did she not let the slightest bit of dirt on her son, she even raised him to be a little too pure and even a little delicate like a girl. In addition, his temperament was not bad, and he liked quite a lot of people. How could she not be angry when he ended up like this in her own home? The manservant behind her scrambled in, and without saying anything, he directly knelt down and kowtowed to beg for forgiveness. This manservant was only 2 or 3 years older than Luo Xiaoba. At this time, he was quite frightened. Jingwan hurriedly got up and comforted the still sobbing Luo Xiaoba. Together with Mama Gong, she took him to wash up and change his clothes. However, as soon as they stepped out of the door, they met the maidservants and wet nurses who rushed over. When they saw Luo Xiaoba's appearance, they even forgot to greet Jingwan and kept saying, "Little ancestor, how did you end up like this?" Jingwan looked at them coldly. She did not care whether they were sincere or not. Hurry up and take him to wash up. Facing Jingwan's cold eyes, the maidservants and wet nurses could not help but tremble and hurriedly responded. Jingwan narrowed her eyes. "Mama Gong, you go with them." Mama Gong also knew what Jingwan meant. There was a little ghost around the 8th young master, but she did not know who it was. She was too lazy to ask about Madame Lu's matter. But now that they met, Luo Xiaoba's surname was Luo, and he was the master. How could she watch him be bullied by some demons and monsters? Yes, Mississippi. Jingwan went back and heard the servant's narration. It was indeed a lesson at home, but she did not know why Luo Xiaoba suddenly wanted to come back. Luo Xiaoba had always been obedient at home. When he asked the teacher for leave, the teacher also agreed. However, as soon as he entered the courtyard of the third branch, the servant needed to pee, so he left for a while. But when he came back, he was gone. He stopped a passerby and asked about it, and then hurriedly came back. When he saw his master again, he was already like this. That is to say, he did not know what happened when he left. Was the servant's departure just a coincidence, or was it deliberate? It was a crime to leave without taking good care of his master. Seeing that he was still young, Madame Lu gave him a light punishment and only gave him 10 strokes. Madame Lu naturally cared more about her son. She had been sitting in the room. When she heard that something happened to her son, she hurriedly came out. But when she saw Madame Luo's cold face, she hurriedly stopped. A woman's husband was the sky. At this moment, she did not know whether her husband was alive or not. But because of her son's trivial matter, she did not care about her husband. Mother. Her lips trembled. She did not know how to speak. "Do you think I'll let my grandson suffer a loss?" "Mother, I didn't mean that." "Then I'll have to trouble you." She reluctantly turned back. When Luo Xiaoba was brought back, other than his eyes being a little red, there was no other problem. "Madame Luo, when I was changing 8th young master's clothes, I saw that 8th young master's hands and knees were bruised." This servant took the initiative to ask. 8th young master said that his servant went to the toilet. He was about to come back to find 3rd madam, but he was suddenly pushed and fell to the ground. Not only was he bruised, but he was also pressed down on the ground. That servant told him that 3rd young master is gone, and 3rd madam is not liked by you. In the future, he will be a pitiful worm in the Luo family. Madame Luo stroked her sleeves. He really has guts. It was not a heavy sentence, but even Madame Wang, who had been in charge of the family for many years, could not help but tense up when she heard it. Madame Luo waved at Luo Xiaoba. "Xiaoba, come here." "Grandmother." Luo Xiaoba went over. "Is my father really gone? Do you really not like me anymore? Don't listen to those people's nonsense. Your father was accidentally injured. Nothing will happen. Our Xiaoba has always been an obedient child. How can grandmother not like him? Tell grandmother, who was the person who said these words to you and pushed you?" Madame Lu usually looked fierce, but now she couldn't even manage her own courtyard. "Grandmother, I don't know. I was pushed from behind. It seemed to be a maid in a green dress. Except for the people in this room, gather all the servants of the 3rd branch. Eldest daughter-in-law, you deal with this matter. If there is anything wrong, don't be polite. They will all be sold as guilty slaves. Yes, mother. First aunt, I have a small suggestion. I don't know if I can say it. Jingwan stopped Madame Wang. What can't you say? Just say it. Third young lady has always been smart. Maybe you can quickly find the real culprit. First aunt, you flatter me. Separate everyone and find more people. At the same time, ask them what they have done, who they have seen, and even what they have said during this period of time. Record them one by one. Madame Wang immediately understood after Jingwan said this. Her eyes lit up. Third young lady, this is a good idea. After comparing them one by one, it will be clear at a glance who is the culprit. We can even extend the time. Those who are alone will also know if they are doing what they were supposed to do. Jingwan nodded. First aunt, you are very thoughtful. Third young lady, don't flatter me. Then, they just had to wait for the results. However, the imperial physician had not arrived and the situation inside was getting worse. The physician was now trying his best to keep Third Master Luo alive. As for the concubines outside, even though Madame Luo was there, they couldn't help but cry even louder. Madame Luo had a headache because of them, but she didn't say anything to stop them. Luo Jingming hurried back. His forehead was covered in sweat and his face was red. When he entered, he couldn't stop panting. Grandmother, father. How is father? It's not good. The imperial physician hasn't arrived yet. Sit down and rest for a while. Why hasn't the imperial physician arrived yet? Luo Jingming was in disbelief. The imperial hospital was obviously much closer to his home. I'll go out and take a look. Then, he turned and left without giving anyone any chance to stop him. Madame Luo sighed. When the Lu matriarch married into the family, Luo Jingming was already born, and he was a boy. It wasn't hard to imagine that he was definitely a thorn in the Lu matriarch's side. In less than half a year, Luo Jingming's own concubine died. She committed suicide, and the Lu matriarch was framed. In reality, many people knew that the Lu matriarch didn't do it. However, everyone knew that the Lu matriarch would make a move on the mother and son sooner or later. If the Lu matriarch simply died, she could still protect her son. Thus, even if the Lu matriarch felt like there was a fishbone stuck in her throat, she didn't dare to do anything. When Luo Jingming was enlightened, he was assigned to live in the outer courtyard. Among the brothers, he was the youngest to live alone. It was also because of this that although he hated the Lu matriarch, he wasn't blinded by reason. On the contrary, this tender seedling was perfectly straight and was growing healthily. He was very outstanding, and he wasn't any worse than the legitimate sons of the first and second branches. Luo Rongping also thought highly of him. However, with Luo Peishan watching over him, it didn't matter if he pretended to obey, but if he brought his son along, Luo Peishan would definitely beat him to death. It was also because of this that the relationship between the father and son was actually relatively pure. Therefore, Luo Jingming really admired Luo Rongping. Luo Rongping was his closest relative by blood. Therefore, if something really happened to Luo Rongping, Luo Jingming would be the only one who would be heartbroken and in pain. Then, not long after, Luo Jingming ran back with a person on his back. There was no doubt that that person was the imperial physician. Just by listening to the sound of running outside the door, one could tell how fast he ran. After entering the door, he staggered and almost fell. Fortunately, he was quickly pulled back by the people around him. Imperial physician, I'm sorry for troubling you. Luo Jingming's legs turned to jelly, and he almost fell again previously. His face was flushed because of the vigorous running, but now it was a little green. This wasn't a good thing. All right, you should quickly rest by yourself. Imperial physician, please come in, Madame Luo said. The old imperial physician was quite old. At first he was very displeased when he was treated so rudely, but now he was a little envious. What a filial child. The imperial physician went in and was about to help Luo Jingming sit down when Jingwan hurriedly stopped him. She asked the servant to help Luo Jingming walk around. If he couldn't be helped, she would find someone else to help him. In short, he couldn't stop and rest immediately. Jingwan was never one to speak without thinking. She must have her reasons for saying that. Jingwan saw Luo Jingming smile at her and felt an inexplicable sense of suffocation in her heart. This cousin of hers actually had a very good personality and treated his younger siblings well. She once heard from third brother that he had secretly helped second cousin with Luo Jingxiang. Now, he was also secretly helping the 3 younger siblings of the third branch. His own expenses were basically the small portion of the family's allowance, and half of it was given out. He actually lived very frugally. Third brother wanted to help him, but he refused every time. He was very clear-minded and would help when he could. He always controlled the extent of his abilities. Luo Rongping was such a person. It was worth it to have such a son in this life. However, as father and son, they also proved that feelings were mutual. Actually, did Luo Jingming not know at all what Luo Rongping was doing? No, he should more or less know, but he couldn't say anything. To a certain extent, he was actually sandwiched between Luo Peishan and Luo Rongping. That kind of feeling was probably not good. At this moment, Jingwan hoped that Luo Rongping was only paralyzed and would not jump around outside. That way, second cousin would feel much more relieved. As long as he was still alive, second cousin would not fall into the pain of losing a loved one. Another imperial physician and their entourage arrived soon after. Jingwan's father, Luo Rongyan, was also with them. After asking, they found out that they had met on the road. Also, the reason why the imperial physician was so late was because the prince's brother-in-law was injured. It wasn't serious, but when the Luo family went to invite the imperial physician, they deliberately delayed the imperial physician. Everything seemed to indicate that they were deliberately doing this. It's Prince Kong again. Madame Luo frowned. Luo Rongyan heard her words that seemed to have a deeper meaning. He also frowned but did not ask anything. Now, he could only wait quietly. Half an hour later, Wang Shi returned. Obviously, what happened to Luo Xiaoba had come to an end. Wang Shi just whispered to Madame Luo. Jingwan naturally would not inquire about Wang Shi's concealment. However, in the Luo family, there was probably no one else but concubine Huan who would have bad intentions towards Luo Xiaoba. Whether today's matter had something to do with her or not, in short, the people around Luo Xiaoba who were bribed by her should have been removed. However, concubine Huan could compete with Madame Lu because she still relied on Luo Rongping. It didn't make sense for her to let people attack Luo Xiaoba at this juncture. She was still so despicable. Wasn't her original intention to let Luo Xiaoba get close to her and alienate Madame Lu, and then secretly destroy Luo Xiaoba's body? Maybe she was just bribed by her to make her own decision? After this incident, Madame Lu could be more alert. However, without Luo Rongping to rely on, it should not be difficult for Madame Lu to deal with concubine Huan, right? The other members of the Luo family came back one after another. Luo Peishan, on the other hand, came back later than usual. When he went to the third branch, there was only old Madame Luo, his other 3 sons, and Luo Jingming. How is the situation? The imperial physician said that his life should be saved, but I'm afraid that he will have to lie in bed for the rest of his life. The exact situation will be seen tomorrow morning. Tonight maybe. I left the 2 imperial physicians in the residence. Luo Peishan nodded and then looked at Luo Jingming. This grandson was too quiet at this time. Go back and rest. Come back tomorrow. Grandfather. Okay, there's no need to say anything more. I've already asked someone to apply for leave for you at the Imperial College. Thank you, grandfather. Go back. Yes, I'll take my leave. After Luo Jingming left, Luo Peishan's eldest son, Luo Rongwen, immediately asked, Father, what exactly happened to third brother? That's right, they did not believe that this was really an accident. Luo Peishan glanced at them. There's no value in being alive. There's only value in being dead. There was even a hint of ruthlessness in his words. This meant that Luo Rongping was still alive, and this matter was an accident. Only when he was dead would they investigate to the end. Father, why did this happen? Luo Rongyan frowned in confusion. He despised this third brother of his, who was snobbish, but he was still his own brother. Why did he not say anything when an outsider bullied him? Why? Because there's balance. Even His Majesty is happy to see this kind of balance. Prince Kang's family has Jingguo's wife, but because her face was disfigured and she's only Prince Kang's cousin, the value of the marriage alliance weakened. As for Prince Rui, his fourth daughter, became his concubine. She's only a concubine after all, so there's only so much value. The imbalance before was because of third brother's involvement. Now that third brother is like this, is it completely balanced? Luo Peishan sneered. I told him long ago not to get involved in this kind of thing, but he insisted on doing it his own way. He's extravagant in his extravagant hopes for riches and honor. He doesn't even know if he has the ability and the fate to do so. Heaven's sins can be forgiven, but the sins brought on by oneself are the hardest to bear. Then who did it? Luo Rongwei asked. Previously, he stuck with Prince Kong. Later, he wanted to use his daughter to achieve meteoric success with Prince Rui. Who do you think did it? He's a fence-sitter. Does he think that others don't know? Then it's Prince Kong. Luo Rongwei scratched his head. Idiot. Luo Peishan scolded. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653142. HTML. Please click here to report an error. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com. Bicken. Com mobile version, reading website, mbicken.com. Chapter 164. It's not wrong to say that Prince Kong did this. After all, when the third son had an accident, there were people from Prince Kang's faction around. Even if it's not him, all the evidence will point to him. So what he did was not wrong, and whether it was an accident or not, it doesn't matter. In the end, the Luo family is just a chess piece for those people. Luo Peishan said helplessly. In fact, Luo Peishan had another guess in this matter. Since a certain king of hell got involved, he always felt that there was his shadow everywhere. He was like a ghost, lingering and not dispersing. Many things went smoothly, but sometimes he felt even more exhausted. If this continued, he was even worried that he would lose 10 years of his life. He had no one to complain about this kind of anxiety, because as the only person he could talk to, his old wife had long been siding with an outsider, who let her dear grandchild be her treasure. If the living king of hell could protect her treasure, then it was a good thing. Thinking like this, Luo Peishan unconsciously glanced at his old wife. She lowered her eyebrows and narrowed her eyes to drink tea, as if she didn't hear their conversation at all. Also, in this kind of thing, she always only listened and didn't talk. Concubine Huan, what are you doing here? Mrs. Lu's voice came from behind. Luo Peishan and the others looked at each other. Since they dared to talk about this matter here, naturally, they were not afraid of being heard by the women of the third branch. Or, Luo Peishan was deliberately doing it. Regarding the matter of Luo Jingying, after all, she was Mrs. Lu's daughter. As a mother, it was impossible for her not to know anything about how to arrange her. It just so happened that there were some things to let her know a little more clearly. Let her know that she could only rely on the Luo family now. If she was restless all day long and always thought about some nonsense, then don't blame the Luo family for not tolerating her. But why did Concubine Huan appear again? This was the main room of the third branch. Why was there a concubine here at this time? Come out. Old Madame Luo said lightly. She didn't know that inside, Madame Lu was staring at Concubine Huan with a cold smile. After hearing what she shouldn't have heard, she wanted to run away. She didn't even ask if she agreed. This slut had relied on that damn thing's favor to climb over her head time and time again. What was even more hateful was that she had dared to stretch her hand over her son's head. Now that damn thing couldn't climb up and she had caught such a good opportunity. If she didn't take revenge now, when would she? Concubine Juan's eyes were hazy. Mrs. Lu asked her to bring out the water. She also knew that she couldn't argue with her at this critical juncture. She could only wait for San Yi to wake up. As long as San Yi said that he couldn't leave her and wanted her to serve him, she could protect herself. As long as she gave birth to a child, whether it was a boy or a girl, she could think of a way to settle down. With the eldest son of the third branch as an example, she wouldn't stupidly kill herself. It should be possible to let Laoi take care of her. If it was a girl, then they could only blame that they didn't have the fate of mother and daughter. She thought that Mrs. Lu just wanted to take the opportunity to torment her, so she was very obedient. She didn't expect that there was such a big trap waiting for her. She knew that she was not easy to deal with, but she still underestimated her. Mrs. Lu didn't leave just now. Perhaps she knew that Laoi was coming, but she didn't know. She could set a trap. It didn't matter if it succeeded or not. But obviously, not only did it succeed, it was also fatal. When they heard old Madame Luo's summons, they tidied up their clothes and came out one after another. Because there were several men, either eunuchs or uncles, with their heads slightly lowered. Their eyes fell on the ground. She greeted him politely. "Did you hear what we said before? What do you want to say?" Luo Peishan went straight to the point. Although Mrs. Lu didn't hear as much as Concubine Huan, Luo Peishan's last few words were almost enough. Because of Luo Jingying, she had already sobered up a lot. It was simply a dream to try to restore her family. Her mother had died early, and her father had also passed away. Now, her elder brother was in charge of the Lu family, but he was just a loser. Although he had the title of a count, he was idle all day long and didn't work. He didn't have much wealth to begin with, so naturally, he lost it even faster. From time to time, he would come to her place to ask for money. Even if the emperor's grace was vast and mighty, and he was promoted, could he support it? Would the Luo family think highly of him? Would her status in the Luo family be raised because of this? The answer was actually very obvious. No. The Luo family was a scholarly family and a family of etiquette. Her father-in-law and mother-in-law were not snobbish people. When you were down, they would not hit you when you were down. And when you were rich, they would not covet your slightest bit. She should have seen this fact clearly a long time ago, but she was unwilling. But now, what could she do even if she was unwilling? Everything was just a delusion. If she really dared to do anything else and make the Luo family abandon her, she would really have no way to live. She had once threatened Luo Rongping by beating the drum. She wasn't tired of living yet. Mrs. Lu directly knelt down. "Father, mother, in the past, this daughter-in-law was insensible and caused you a lot of trouble. In the future, this daughter-in-law will live a good life and raise the children well. I will not ruin the Luo family's reputation." Did she really think it through? It seemed that this person really knew how to reflect on herself in despair. However, Mrs. Lu's words didn't seem to have anything to do with her husband. It could be seen that until now, her heart was still filled with resentment. In fact, from Mrs. Lu's point of view, it was natural for her to feel resentment. Whether you really think so, or it's just a temporary measure, this is your last chance, old Madame Luo said. Mrs. Lu's body trembled slightly, and there was a trace of joy in her heart. Concubine Huan also hurriedly knelt down and expressed her position. "Master, old madam, this concubine is willing to take care of third master for the rest of my life. If something happens to third master, please wait for this concubine to give birth to a child. Then this concubine is willing to be buried with third master." If Luo Rongping heard this, he would probably be very moved. He might even hug each other and have a touching scene of life and death parting. Tears would fall like rain, and he would be heartbroken. Unfortunately, the men present were far from being as protective of the fairer sex as Luo Rongping. Moreover, their brother's concubine had nothing to do with them, so they wouldn't even look at her. Moreover, that's your man. Isn't it right for you to do that? And for old Madame Luo, concubine Huan's little tricks were simply not enough. She looked at her meaningfully, then looked at Mrs. Lu, who had lowered her eyes. Third daughter-in-law. She is a member of your third branch. You are the mistress of the third branch. Naturally, you should deal with this matter. However, there are some things that should be left to rot in your stomach. If you say it out loud, it won't be good for anyone. Yes, this daughter-in-law understands. Mrs. Lu respectfully responded. In that case, keep an eye on third master tonight. If there's anything, immediately report to us. Luo Peishan gave his final instructions, then got up and left. Old Madame Luo followed closely behind, followed by the other three masters. Mrs. Lu stood up and glanced at concubine Huan, who was still kneeling upright. Someone come. The maidservant guarding outside immediately came in. Madam, send someone to concubine Huan's courtyard and bring her daily change of clothes. Concubine Huan will serve third master day and night. In the future, concubine Huan will live in the back room of the main house. In order to protect herself, this *TCH would make any choice. Mrs. Lu would naturally fulfill her wish. Serving people had never been an easy job, especially a person who was fine one moment and paralyzed the next. Her temperament would inevitably change greatly. This kind of person would probably only prove that she still existed and was superior to others by torturing others. Who else could be more suitable for this task than concubine Huan? Mrs. Lu bent down slightly and patted concubine Huan's mother. Third master likes you so much, and he also trusts you very much. In the future, you must serve him well. Don't let down his feelings for you. Madam, don't worry. This concubine will definitely serve third master well. Concubine Huan said. It was almost impossible to detect any difference from her tone. Mrs. Lu nodded. That's good. Mrs. Lu was actually looking forward to it. She wanted to see how long this *TCH could last. She would not let anyone help her. Eating, drinking, going to the toilet, everything would be taken care of by this *TCH. Moreover, Luo Rongping was the third master of the Ministry of Personnel. Even if he was paralyzed, Mrs. Lu could not abuse him. Therefore, once he felt uncomfortable, it must be because this *TCH did not serve him well. Hee. When concubine Huan heard Mrs. Lu's laughter, she could not help but feel a chill in her heart. An eyesore of a concubine, without a man to rely on, she could only be kneaded and squashed by the mistress. She could not resist. Don't say that there were so many people around her before. When she worked for her, those people were the best at taking advantage of the situation. Moreover, she belonged to a lowly concubine. To put it bluntly, she was the property of the master and mistress. Now that the master was gone, she was firmly controlled by the mistress. Didn't she hear Mrs. Lu say that she would only pack a few clothes for her? In other words, everything else no longer belonged to her. You can get close to my son, under my nose, and bribe the people around him. Originally, I thought that you were capable. However, I have been waiting for you to do something stupid. But, in fact, you don't have that ability. You schemed against the third young lady, and then framed me. You have always wanted to do this, right? It's a pity that you can't even get close to that girl. In this backyard, it's possible for me to scheme against anyone. There are only two people that I won't directly reach out to. One is the old madam, and the other is our third young lady. Touching the third young lady's hair is more serious than scratching the old madam's body. In the whole mansion, only my stupid daughter insisted on going up to find trouble. I have already told her not to directly confront her. However, she is also a young lady in the mansion. The old madam only punished her. If it were you or me, the old madam will definitely skin us alive. Do you believe it or not? The more Mrs. Lu said, the more she felt that it was reasonable. Before, she realized that she could not directly attack that girl, Luo Jingwan, but she had never been so clear-headed. She also had to bear a large part of the responsibility for her daughter's current situation. Once she started to be clear-headed, she would be completely clear-headed. But now, she could not take care of her daughter. https://www Bicken. com/11/11807/6653144. HTML. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com, Bikuga mobile reading website, mbicken.com. Chapter 165. What would happen to concubine Juan in the future could almost be predicted. She probably never thought of such an ending, right? She touched her belly that was already more than 4 months pregnant. This might be her last hope, but at this moment, she still couldn't help but feel panic in her heart. The old madam had handed her over to Mrs. Lu to deal with. She had no power, and no one. In the future, she was afraid that she would be completely trapped in the house. Only in this way could she ensure that she would keep her mouth shut. Whether this child could be born or not, it was all up to Mrs. Lu. She had long heard that the old madam didn't like concubines. The concubines of each branch basically didn't have a chance to show their faces in front of her. This time, she really experienced it unforgettable. Not to mention, some concubines flattered the old madam and then suppressed the mistress. In the Luo family's backyard, it was simply a dream. Even if the old madam didn't like her daughter-in-law, it was absolutely not their turn to step on the legal wife and mistress. In this regard, old Madame Luo was definitely the best mother-in-law. Mrs. Lu seemed to have seen through her thoughts. Don't worry, I won't do anything to you. After all, without you, what should you do? I don't know if he thinks so, but you must have thought so before. Naturally, I will fulfill your infatuation. I won't touch the piece of meat in your belly, but I don't think you will like others to serve him. You have to take care of him and the child. Mrs. Lu sighed with pity. So, you must take good care of yourself. Concubine Juan's heart was even colder. This was Mrs. Lu's real purpose. At this moment, Concubine Juan even had the idea of letting Luo Romping die quickly. But she couldn't. If he died, she would probably be buried with him. Although her birth had eliminated the possibility of her being the legal wife, she thought that with her talent, beauty, and skills, it was easy to firmly control a man's heart. Even if she wasn't the legal wife, she could still get whatever she wanted. No one dared to look down on her. Before today, she also thought that she was living such a life, but it turned out that it wasn't. No matter how fiercely she fought with Mrs. Lu, in fact, the Luo family didn't take her seriously. If they really wanted to deal with her, the man she relied on would absolutely not be able to stop them. Before, it was Mrs. Lu who made the old madam unhappy and didn't want to help her. Did she hate her? Of course, she hated her. But who should she hate? The old madam? Mrs. Lu? Her man? Or should he blame the heavens for being unfair? Madame Lu took one last look at concubine Juan, who was pretending to be calm on the surface, but in fact, her heart was close to collapse. Madame Lu also felt that she was so stupid in the past. She clearly had a mother-in-law who stood on the side of her daughter-in-law in this aspect, but she had to court death and make her unhappy. Otherwise, no matter how Luo Romping was, there would never be so many foxes in this backyard. She glanced at the bedroom behind her and saw the man lying unconscious on the bed through the wall. Even if he wasn't dead, he wouldn't be able to get up. This source of trouble had been completely cut off. In the future, she wouldn't have to be so tired anymore. After the initial pleasure, her heart calmed down again. Luo Peishan and old Madame Luo, as well as their sons, each went to their own place to think. Whether it was a good night's sleep or a sleepless night's sleep, they didn't mention it for the time being. After Qin Tianming went to the Yamen, he had already gone to the gate of Jin Qinhuang's mansion to ask for forgiveness. In the end, he was a first-rank military governor. Li Honyuan didn't do anything to him. He just let him kneel for 2 hours. There were few people coming and going in front of the gate of Jin Qinhuang's mansion, but it wasn't that there weren't any. Therefore, Qin Tianming's matter was estimated to be known by everyone. However, Qin Tianming was a miserable person. This apology was just for outsiders to see. The real apology would be at night. Li Hongyuan didn't say much. He just pulled him to the martial arts field, and the two of them practiced. In terms of martial arts, there was probably no one who could win against Li Hongyuan in a one-on-one fight. He was a battlefield. He had been baptized by blood for a few years. If one wanted to fight with him, one would only die faster. Therefore, the result of the practice was that Qin Tianming was beaten down again and again. His whole body was covered with invisible scars. However, there were no injuries to his muscles or bones. It wouldn't affect his daily life. But at this moment, it was very painful, very painful. When Qin Tianming curled up on the ground and couldn't get up again, Li Hongyuan stopped and squatted down. "Do you know your mistake?" "Master, this subordinate knows his mistake." The way he addressed him was his good attitude at this time. "What did you do wrong? You didn't teach your daughter well. You didn't teach your son well. Qin Tianming, third Miss Luo, is your future mistress. The only one. She and I are one. We will live and die together." Li Hongyuan's tone wasn't heavy, but the weight of his words set off huge waves in Qin Tianming's heart. Right now he only felt that his master was really benevolent. His daughter had been so offended, but she didn't lose a single hair. As for the rest of them, they were only injured. They weren't crippled or killed. This wasn't a great kindness. "Master, don't worry. This matter will not happen again. Otherwise, this subordinate will personally end that evil girl. You don't need me to teach you what to do with your son-in-law, do you? Master, please don't worry." "Okay, get out." Li Hongyuan got up and left unhurriedly. His figure soon disappeared into the darkness. After a while, Qin Tianming slowly got up. He gritted his teeth and endured the pain. Li Hongyuan returned to the study. "How is Luo Rongping?" "Master, 20% is dead, 80% is paralyzed." Li Hongyuan didn't ask again. "Starting tomorrow, send some seasonal fruits to Wanwan every day." "Master, don't worry. This servant will remember." As for the Luo family, there was no bad news from a third branch tonight. It could be considered a blessing in the misfortune. There was no morning court today, so the morning roll call at the Yamen could be slightly delayed. Luo Peishan went to the third branch to see Luo Rongping. From the imperial physician who came to check on the situation from time to time all night, he learned that his third son's life was saved. Luo Peishan breathed a sigh of relief. Although this bastard was disobedient and stubborn, he thought that he deserved it. Although he looked incomparably cold on the surface, his heart was still somewhat soft-hearted. Now that things were like this, no one would dislike him and want to punish him or even kill him as an example to others. The Luo family would also not be implicated by him. When Jingwan paid her respects to old Madame Luo, she heard the exact news. In fact, everyone, including the others, had the same thoughts as Luo Peishan. Of course, in fact, most people didn't know the specific situation and only thought that Luo Rongping had an accident. Although this matter could only be treated as an accident because Luo Rongping was still alive, it didn't mean that Luo Peishan's expression was good. It was unknown whether other people knew about this matter, but almost all the people in the Ministry of Personnel knew. When they saw Luo Peishan's gloomy face, they didn't dare to breathe loudly. When they saw him, they hurriedly left after greeting him. As for those who saw him from afar, they directly took a detour, afraid that they would bump into him. This selflessness and iron blood were equally famous. If he caught a person's weakness, even if they didn't die, they would be skinned alive. Prince Rue originally wanted to take this opportunity to comfort Luo Peishan. However, he thought that this old fox would not be so easily deceived. Perhaps he had already suspected him at this time. It was time to go up. If things went wrong, he might think that he was showing off. His previous efforts had failed to soften his attitude, and now it might backfire. Therefore, after a slight hesitation, Prince Rue chose to leave. He didn't know that after he turned around, Luo Peishan's piercing gaze was full of coldness. On the surface, it was indeed treated as an accident, but it didn't mean that he really didn't care at all. That was his son. Even if he was in the wrong, Could this group of people wantonly decide his life and death? Before this, it was impossible for him to work for him. After touching his son, they still continued to have such thoughts? Did they really think that he, Luo Peishan, was made of clay? Not long after, Lu Chengdi summoned him. Luo Peishan tidied his clothes and entered the palace with a solemn expression. Lu Chengdi said that he had also just heard the unfortunate news and was grieving. "How is your son?" he asked with concern. "Thank you for your concern, Your Majesty. My son's life is not in danger. It's just that." Luo Peishan's indifferent face flashed with a touch of sorrow. "It's just that I'm afraid that in the future he will be entangled in bed and won't be able to get up again." Lu Chengdi sighed. Luo Peishan, even if he didn't smile normally, was full of a scholarly aura and didn't make people feel that he was cold. However, today he was emitting an aura of strangers don't come near. It could be seen that perhaps he was really in extreme pain. However, beloved official Luo, how did your son get into this accident? Have you investigated clearly? I'm also confused about this matter. If someone did something, just tell me. I will definitely seek justice for you. Why do you say that, Your Majesty? Luo Peishan was slightly puzzled. My son was an accident. Speaking of it, it's also his fate. If he really wanted to seek justice for him, he should directly hand this matter over to the Supreme Court for a thorough investigation. It could be seen that this matter was really what the emperor in front of him wanted to see. However, there was no other way. He was the emperor, and he was the subject. As the saying goes, if the emperor wants the subject to die, the subject has to die. It was easy to deal with other people, but the emperor couldn't find a way to settle accounts with him. Moreover, he wasn't the real culprit. He didn't even add fuel to the fire. He just didn't do anything after knowing that the matter wasn't simple, and then hoped that some people would keep quiet. Lu Chengdi was very satisfied with Luo Peishan's tactfulness. He let people reward Luo Rongping with a lot of good medicinal materials, and specially allowed the imperial physician to stay in the Luo family for a few more days. On the surface, this matter was covered up like this. Of course, it was only on the surface. At least, Prince Kong was now in a terrible fix. First, he was scolded by the Empress. Although she didn't use a dirty word, her words were all saying that he was an idiot, and a failure. Prince Kong was so angry that his veins were bulging, but he still didn't dare to lose his temper at the Empress. He just explained that he didn't do it. As a result, he was scolded even more miserably by the Empress. If he did it and was caught, at least he was worthy of the name. If he didn't do it and was framed, that was more incompetent and sullen. Speaking of which, Prince Kang's temper was so bad at other times because he was too sullen in front of the Empress. He was bound to get to the bottom of this matter. In addition to wanting to prove himself, he didn't want to take the blame for his sworn enemy. Luo Rongping's fence-sitter behavior naturally angered him. Even if he pushed all the blame to Prince Rui and expressed his loyalty to Prince Kong didn't believe him at all. Thus, he wanted to teach him a lesson and punish him as an example to others. He originally planned to make him fall off his horse, but the key point was that he still let people take action. Then, he gathered the relevant people together for a trial. However, the results made him break out in a cold sweat. These people told him with certainty that they did it because they were instructed by him. But they didn't have any evidence. After all, who would leave evidence for such a sinister thing? Jie Yan received the news from him the night before, because it was consistent with his previous hints, and the number of people they met was also correct. Other than Prince Kong and his confidants, no one else should know about it. Thus, he didn't have any suspicions. Then, he stalled for time and aggravated Luo Rongping's injury. This was also part of the plan. In this case, how could Prince Kong not feel as if he had fallen into an ice cave? This framing was very thorough, and it also indirectly proved that there was really a big problem around him. Otherwise, how could the enemy carry out his plans so easily without suspicion? In a flash, Prince Kong became a bird startled by the twang of a bough. It seemed that everyone was suspicious, so he became more and more irritable. Originally, when he learned that Luo Peishan treated it as an accident and didn't want to investigate further, as the people involved, they should more or less visit him to express their sincerity. After all, they went back home after the incident, which was very immoral. However, Prince Kong didn't know what was wrong with him. Not only did he not agree to this, but he also brought the matter to Lu Chengdi and asked Lu Chengdi to prove his innocence. In the court, all the civil and military officials were present. Lu Chengdi hinted that this matter was an accident and stopped here, but Prince Kong didn't seem to understand and told him that he was wronged in a tearful voice. Lu Chengdi was so angry that he wanted to strangle him to death. Well, he had proven his innocence, which confirmed that Luo Rongping was framed by someone and not an accident. No matter who the culprit was, as the executor, none of the people involved in this matter could escape. Those people were all Prince Kang's people, more or less related to him, and some are even his brothers-in-law. Now, all because of him, they were sent to prison and were trapped like this by the master they were loyal to. He reckoned that Prince Kong would be so angry that he would vomit blood. As for the others, they were afraid that they would have a cold new life. What kind of future would they have if they followed such a person? Even if they risked their lives for him, who knew when he would sell them out? His heart wavered, so he naturally thought about whether he should choose another master. Prince Rue and the others looked at him with vigor. This kind of person, perhaps he didn't need to do anything to be finished. In fact, Prince Rue was still considering whether to let Luo Jingying go home to visit family. But in the end, she was only a concubine. Her status was too low. It should be known that even ordinary concubines didn't have the qualifications to go home to visit family. If a concubine was allowed to go home to visit family, it would definitely be a great honor. Only her man would spoil her to the heavens. However, a mere concubine was too much of an honor. If he dared to set this precedent, he was afraid that the imperial censor's saliva would drown him. After thinking about it, he could only give up. Perhaps he could send a steward to visit the Luo family in the name of Luo Jingying. In the end, Prince Kong only knew that his imperial father believed him, and that he didn't do it. As a result, Prince Kong felt refreshed, as if he didn't realize the seriousness of this matter at all. After the morning court, Lu Chengdi flew into a rage and almost overturned the imperial table. He kept calling Prince Kong a fool. Prince Kang's behavior was not only pushing his own people out, but also slapping his father's face. Lu Chengdi, the emperor, regarded it as an accident, but his son unceremoniously tore down his father's face. Sun Yilin was next to him. He lowered his eyebrows and narrowed his eyes, looking more and more cold. He had already seen through it. No matter how ambitious his Aunt Empress was, there was no hope for her to realize it in this life. This drag was so strong that others couldn't pull her back even if they worked together. Duke Dingwa's mansion was also in a mess. His strong rise had suppressed his elder brother's development, but there was no other way. He was not only fighting for himself, but more importantly, for the future of Duke Dingwa's mansion and even the Sun family. If he did not do something, he was worried that Duke Dingwa's mansion and the Sun family would be completely destroyed by a certain king of hell. He had lost his beloved woman and had to bear the fate of his family alone. From time to time, he had to face the intimacy of the Empress. Sun Yilin felt very tired many times. Every time this happened, he would sit in the flowers for half a day, alone and quiet, not wanting to be disturbed by anyone. Prince Kong was called by the Empress again and pointed out the interest to him. But Prince Kong didn't care. There were so many people who were loyal to him, and it didn't matter if there were a few fewer. He was the eldest son of the legal wife, and no one was qualified to compete with him. The Empress waved her hand and let him leave. She didn't even bother to give him a sentimental idiot look. At this moment, the Empress was really thinking about supporting another prince, a prince who would listen to her 100%. But it was a little difficult to choose. It was not suitable for someone too young. The fight for the throne was almost white-hot. By the time the younger one grew up, it would be too late. But there was no one who was qualified for this fight that she could firmly control in her hands. Now she was a little regretful. Why didn't she adopt a prince in the early years to prepare for a rainy day? Her son was actually quite smart when he was young. Even a few years ago, he seemed to be good. Why did he become more and more disabled after experiencing so many things? The Empress rubbed her swollen and painful temples. It was really not easy to change the person now. Perhaps she should prepare for both sides. Previously, she thought that it would be enough to find him an obedient stepwife. Now it seemed that this was not appropriate. There needed to be someone who was close, opinionated, and knew how to talk to him from time to time. It seemed that the Luo family's third young lady was indeed a very suitable candidate. Unfortunately, if she had known this would happen, she would have made a prompt decision to fight with the emperor. Even if she let Luo Peishan continue to be the Minister of Rights, and even if she gave Yilin some compensation, she was now the fiancée of Li Hongyuan. It was not a wise decision to fight with him. However, perhaps she could make a fuss about him, bringing bad luck to his wife. There were too many examples before. But now the Emperor and Lady Su were watching the Luo family's third young lady closely. It was not so easy to make a move. Empress Sun narrowed her eyes and thought quietly. At the same time, she was calculating in her heart. If this matter did not succeed, who else would be suitable? In her heart, she searched through all the unmarried young ladies in the capital. As for whether Jingwan would have any thoughts in the future, it was not within the scope of her consideration. After a woman got married, her heart would naturally be loyal to her man. The Empress did not think about whether she herself was loyal to Lu Qingdi. As the victim, Luo Rongping of the Luo family naturally knew about this matter at the back of the Luo family. It was Luo Peishan who sent people. Jingwan and Sun Yijia were eating fruits. A certain king of hell sent people to deliver fruits. Since a long time ago, there was an endless stream of fruits every day. Some fruits that were easier to store and transport were naturally sent more, while others were less. Especially when Sun Yijia saw it, she was very surprised. In the past few years, even in the palace, it was extremely rare. This also confirmed what Li Honyuan had said. Jingwan was silent, and then she decisively hid the fruits. If there was more, she would share some. If there was less, except for a little bit sent to old Madame Luo, she kept all the rest. Her mother did not even have any. There was no way. Her mother could not hide it. Doing this was just to avoid attracting trouble. After all, the palace did not have it, but you ate it every day. What was going on? Even if Jin Qinhuang did not care about people knowing that he brought these things back, the palace was not willing to give them. Wasn't that unfilial? As the beneficiary of the benefits, Jingwan naturally had to help cover it up. Therefore, the Luo family only knew that Jin Qinhuang sent a lot of fruits to Jingwan. Only a few people knew what exactly it was. Sun Yijia couldn't help but tease Jingwan. Sure enough, she was different. Even that king of hell, who had seen countless beauties, was so attentive. She had never heard of any of the previous fiancés receiving this kind of treatment. Eating can't even block your mouth. Jingwan gave her a sidelong glance. Sun Yijia quickly shut her mouth, because she heard Jingwan say that eating more fruits was good for the baby. Other than those that were easy to get heaty, she ate a lot. However, for those that were smaller in amount, even if she was hungry, she only ate a little. If she really listened to Wan Mimi and ate all of it, other than the people serving Wan Mimi would be unhappy. The old madam would definitely have thoughts. More importantly, if that king of hell knew, he might skin her alive. She herself was also very strange. Before she found out that she was pregnant, her appetite was bad. After she found out, her appetite gradually became better, although she would still feel nauseous when she smelled some special smells. Those before, it was probably the wrong time. And sister-in-law, you are a special case. Sun Yijia was surprised at first. Then she understood what Jingwan was saying. Who knows? After all, Jin Qinhuang had his first fiancée at the age of 16. It has been 6 years since then. Who would pay attention to those things? I am a special case. This point is not false. I am definitely the one that he dislikes the most. Regarding this point, Sun Ijia did not particularly care. Who wanted to be liked by that king of hell? If he really cared about Wan Mimi and treated Wan Mimi better, perhaps Sun Ijia's opinion of him would be less. That's right, sister-in-law. You should have a mama by your side who specializes in this aspect. Jingwan pointed at Sun Ijia's stomach, but your side seems to be. For a noble lady like her, it was basically standard to have someone like Gong Mama. Even if she did not burn, she would not make a mistake like eating a bad stomach. Sun Ijia paused, then said without care, "Last year in December, she was driven away by my mother. She had a daughter who wanted to climb into my fifth brother's bed. Fifth brother was very angry, so their whole family was angered by my mother." Jingwan laughed. "It's not that I want to say this, but your mother values your fifth brother too much. In the future, she will definitely be incompatible with your fifth sister-in-law. Right now, I'm very glad that I broke off the engagement with your fifth brother, really." Sun Ijia saw that she did not avoid this matter at all. It could be seen that she really did not care. She could not help but sigh for her fifth brother in her heart. What incompatible fire and water! The premise was that there must be such a person. But looking at her fifth brother's state, in the short term, it was very difficult. She was even worried that her fifth brother would not be able to walk out of it in this lifetime. That's right, it's good to break it off. Is it better than marrying into Jin Qinhuang Fu? Jingwan teased. Maybe. According to Jin Qinhuang's current attitude, he should not be too cold to you. After you marry, there will be no one above you to suppress you. Even if there are secondary concubines, they will not be able to surpass you. If you want to deal with them, there are many ways. But if you suppress a difficult mother-in-law, you will only be sullen. Sun Ijia lightly said. Therefore, the relationship between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law in this ancient era was perhaps even more blood-vomiting than the relationship between the legal wife and the concubine. Not to mention that it was like her previous life, where one wrong move and the mother-in-law and the daughter-in-law would fight. Many times, the daughter-in-law would suppress the mother-in-law. Tried here, as a daughter-in-law, if she dared to talk back to the mother-in-law, it would probably cause the sky to fall and the earth to sink. How is your mother? It's just like that. In any case, her actions are not very nimble. All day long, she is making a fuss about fifth brother marrying a wife. Many of uncles and aunts' family's female cousins have been called over to Ding Guogong Fu. You must know in the past, my mother simply did not like them. You say how ironic. As for other things, fifth brother will probably let her do as she pleases. Only when it comes to marrying a wife, I estimate that 3 to 5 years is short. There's nothing wrong with being late. Just like in her previous life, it was normal for men to marry in their 30s. And now is indeed not the right time. Young lady, third young madam, old madam has sent someone over. A servant girl came to report. However, what was more surprising was that the person sent by old Madame Luo was Luo Peishan's personal manservant. Jingwan's heart slightly moved. Is there any new change in third uncle's matter? Thus, that manservant repeated what he had just told old Madame Luo to Jingwan and Sun Ijia. After Jingwan finished listening, she gave a reward and sent that manservant away. She was silent for a moment. Sister-in-law, this cousin of yours is actually an expert in placing righteousness before family. There was simply a hole in his brain. There was a saying, do not fear a god-like opponent, but fear a pig-like teammate. And Prince Kong, as the core figure of the faction, was so deceptive. Even a god-like person could be deceived to death by him. If it happened 2 more times, she was afraid that even the most loyal hardcore would abandon him. What's the point of fighting for the throne? He should just wash his neck clean and wait to be slaughtered. Sun Ijia was speechless for a long time. He really wasn't this stupid before. Pausing, she seemed to have thought of something. Actually, cousin-in-law is a very smart woman. She is wholeheartedly devoted to Prince Kong. Cousin-in-law is seriously ill. It's not that she didn't work too hard. When you get married in the future, I will properly thank Jean Prince. Jingwan understood in a second. Because he messed up your marriage with Jean Prince? Actually, listening to how she addressed Prince Kong and Prince Kong Chin Wangfei, one could know how she felt about these two people. Sun Yijia nonchalantly made an end sound. If he can treat you well, I will be even more grateful to him. It wouldn't be a problem to set up a long life memorial tablet for him. What nonsense are you saying? Jingwan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. As a result, Sun Yijia looked at her very seriously. She really wasn't lying. Jingwan was a little helpless, but her heart was warm and very comfortable. That's right, Wan Mimi. Do you know about Ruan Fangfei's situation? Why are you mentioning her for no reason? Jingwan was very displeased with this person. Such an obvious dislike. If there was no problem, then it would be fake. Who let my Nyang always tell me to learn more from her. Seeing her also suffer in the hands of Jean Prince, I was happy. So, if I could hear news of her misfortune, I would be even happier. You're not this kind of person, so you don't have to discredit yourself like this. Ask Mama, she should know. Usually, she's the one who tells me these things. At this time, Gong Mama wasn't present. Third young mistress, Nubi, also knows about this. Nubi will tell you. As Jingwan's maidservants, they definitely had a common enemy with their mistress. Even if they didn't know the reason why Jingwan hated Ruan Fangfei, they were still their common enemy. So, if Ruan Fangfei was not good, they would be happy. So, if she wasn't good, they definitely had to pay attention to it. Jingwan looked at the Qingju, who was full of gossipy spirit, and thought it was funny. But she didn't stop her. Because of Sun Yijia's personality, there weren't any lively maidservants by her side. Even when she was young, the little maidservants who served her were trained to be well-behaved, as if they were carved from the same mold. According to her mother's words, being too lively would lead her astray. When she first found out about the Qingju's nature, she was actually quite surprised. After interacting with her a few more times, she found that this kind of personality wasn't bad. Okay, you say it. If you say it well, you'll be rewarded. Qingju giggled and agreed. Then, she began to narrate the story vividly. It must be said that these past few days, the outside world was abuzz with rumors. First, it was Jean Prince causing a ruckus in the Gong Prince Fu. Then it was Luo Rongping falling off a horse. Of course, because the latter involved a factional struggle, very few people talked about it openly. However, it spread throughout the entire imperial city. Whether it was in the backyard of a large family or in the marketplace, the topic of conversation was Ruan Fangfei. Compared to Sun Yijia's disfigurement, it was more than 10 times more serious. Therefore, the rumors were all centered around Jean Prince's words. Something about her face being disfigured like a yeksha, suffering from a chronic disease, or that she was actually a stone woman, or even that she wasn't a virgin for a long time. All kinds of malicious guesses were piled on her, with no limit to exaggeration. One person spread it to 10, and 10 people spread it to 100. The initial guesses later became the truth. There were even people who came forward and patted their chest to guarantee that everything was true. And the people who heard it, no matter how outrageous, spread it out again. If Ruan Fangfei dared to appear now, perhaps there wouldn't be a single person within 100 jang radius. How high she was once praised, how miserably she fell now. Don't talk about Ruan Fangfei. Even the other members of the Ruan family don't dare to go out. It's estimated that other than the Grand Secretary, no one in the Ruan family has not been affected. Even those servants who came out to buy things, if they weren't treated differently, they would be asked if the masters of the Ruan family were really like the rumors. At the beginning, whether it was the masters or the servants of the Ruan family, there was no shortage of fights outside. It seems that after the Grand Secretary spoke, the situation calmed down a little. However, those rumors have become more and more intense, especially those young ladies who are close to her. This servant estimates that in order to distance themselves from her, those people will most likely alienate her. It's that serious? Jingwan was very surprised. It shouldn't be. It's reasonable to say that the original source was Jean Prince, and it was in the Gong Prince Fu, so it shouldn't be this outrageous. At most, it should be in the backyard of a large family. Sun Yijia felt that it was somewhat inconceivable. Perhaps someone deliberately fanned the flames and did it on purpose. Jingwan's gaze flashed. She inexplicably thought of that man. It's reasonable to say that he wasn't the kind of person who would do this kind of thing, but on that day, it was indeed him who said those words. It doesn't matter if it is or not. In any case, my mood right now is very good. Who told her to do some bad things to Wan Mimi first? Public opinion can melt gold. Accumulation can destroy bones. This wasn't something to joke about. If the person involved didn't care, the damage might not be too big. But how many people could truly not care? Not to mention the current situation where reputation was greater than the sky. Even in Jingwan's previous life, rumors and slanders could drive people to death. In her previous life, transportation was developed and it was convenient to travel. If one couldn't stay in one place, they could easily change places. But here it wasn't so easy. Thinking of the things that Ruan Fangfei did to her, Jingwan couldn't sympathize at all. However, Jingwan felt that kind of abnormal species, her ability to withstand pressure wasn't ordinary. She couldn't possibly be unable to recover from this setback. So much so that when she appeared again, she might become even crazier and harder to deal with. She had to thoroughly beat her into the dust and lose her freedom. She had to struggle in despair, and after struggling, she would find even more despair. Only in this way could she vent her hatred. Wan Mimi in this way, is it possible for her marriage with Jin Qinhuang to be cancelled? Jingwan stared blankly. If her guess wasn't wrong, if she really liked Jin Qinhuang, the cancellation of the marriage, for her, would probably be one disaster after another. I don't know. Although her reputation is bad, but in the end, it's His Majesty's decree. Wan Mimi, you say, if the marriage is really cancelled, would it be counted as Jin Qinhuang bringing misfortune to his wife? No matter. A Si Fei is just a concubine. It should be that Jin Qinhuang's fate of bringing misfortune to his wife has expanded. Sun Yijia rejoiced in other people's misfortune, but she didn't know whether it was Jin Qinhuang, Ruan Fangfei, or both. Jingwan rolled her eyes at her. What about me? Is sister-in-law cursing me? How can you be the same as them? You are Great Master Liao Chen's 8 characters, a match made in heaven. It shows that he can't bring misfortune to you. It's best if he brings misfortune to all the women close to him except for you. Then he can only have you. And Sun Yijia felt that her idea was very wonderful. Then Wan Mimi could also be a pair for a lifetime. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/66535149. HTML chapter error. Click here to report. Registration is not required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com, Bikuga mobile reading website, mbicken.com. Chapter 166. Mother *her. Who is this silly white sweet? Please return the flower of old age. It was said that pregnancy makes one stupid for 3 years. This child had only been born for a short period of time, and she already became stupid? Hurry and wake up, don't dream Sun Yijia curled her lips. She also knew that she was indulging in fantasy. He kept a courtyard full of beauties. Weren't they all fine and dandy? For Jin Qinhuang to jinx his wife to that extent, it was already very strange. If he really jinxed all the women close to him, then no one would dare to get close to him. She reckoned that even the emperor would suspect that there was a problem with his son. Don't talk about this anymore, it's so boring. Sun Yijia continued to eat. The weather is getting hotter. According to the usual practice, starting next month, the emperor will go to Chengde Palace to avoid the summer heat. Grandfather will definitely be named by the emperor to accompany him. Grandmother will most likely also follow, so you can't run away. I don't know if I should go or not. Of course I should go. I heard that pregnancy is very difficult. Naturally, I should do whatever is comfortable. The palace is only so big. It's all for the emperor's concubines and the princes to live in. The other courtyards of the court officials are all built around the palace. The place is naturally much smaller than the residences in the capital. If more people go, I reckon that they won't be able to live in it. Moreover, the other courtyards of each family are close to each other. When you go out, you can see each other. This will cause more troubles. Sun Ijia spoke from experience. In the past, when she wasn't married, she didn't have the patience to deal with them. Now that she was married, she would definitely be in contact with those who were also married. Those who were the same age as her, as well as those who were older by a few years. There were many old acquaintances, so it would definitely be noisy. Jingwan thought about it. It was indeed so. The closer they lived, the more lively it would be. The women in the inner courtyards of large families were originally bored to the extreme. Even if there was nothing, they would still be able to stir up some trouble. The same thing, their mouths would open and close. They would be able to talk about good and bad things. There's me accompanying you. Right now I'm the same as Jin Qinhuang, belonging to Gue Jianzhou. No one can provoke me. For the past 2 days, the Gong Prince hadn't been able to get a good look from his father-in-law, so he was forced to suffer. Because there were other things pressing down on him, he didn't make the headlines. However, Luo Peishan told old Madame Luo about it, and old Madame Luo told Jingwan about it. So Jingwan knew about it clearly. In the end, the reason was Princess Consort Gong, but the root cause was Jingwan. When Jin Qinhuang went to find the Gong Prince, he didn't obediently drink the wine, and even said something that shouldn't have been said. Naturally, the Gong Princess Consort's maternal family and his in-laws took the blame. The left governor's 3 sons were kicked and injured, and he himself knelt in front of Jin Qinhuang Fu for an hour. This kind of thing had never happened to Lu Chengdi before, so it could be considered a loss of face. The main culprit was his own daughter, so the left governor at most let his wife say a few words. The Gong Prince, who didn't handle this matter well, naturally became the left governor's punching bag. But he was a prince, a Duke of Qin. No matter what, the left governor was only a subject. He couldn't do anything substantial. So he just gave a cold face and gave a cold war. Due to his status, the Gong Prince's words and actions would definitely not be subservient. The more the left governor scrupulously abided by his duties as a subject, the further the distance between them got. But he was the person that the Gong Prince relied on the most so he vomited to death and hated him to death. The so-called clay figurines still had 3 points of temper. Usually, the Gong Princess Consort was fine and indulgent, but now her father was giving her such a hard time, so naturally he took his anger out on her. Almost every day, the Gong Princess Consort was unreasonable as usual, laying her hands on those beauties. But for the first time, she was reprimanded by the Gong Prince, vixen, jealous, losing face for him. At that moment, the Gong Princess Consort felt that it was inconceivable. She quarreled with the Gong Prince, but in the end, with a slap, she completely stopped. It was as if the sky had collapsed and the earth had sunk. The Gong Princess Consort cried as she returned to the champion Marquis Fu. Although her grandfather was the champion Marquis, her father held the right to speak. Her mother felt sorry for her, but Qin Tianming was a military general. He wouldn't fall for her crying, throwing a tantrum, and threatening to hang herself. So what if she was the Gong Princess Consort? In his territory, she was only his daughter. Even if she turned into a dragon, she had to coil up. Even if she turned into a tiger, she had to lie down. As a result, the Gong Princess Consort, who had been arrogant for several years, suffered 2 heavy blows on the same day. In an instant, she was like a flower in full bloom that lost its moisture, wilting. In the end, she was the Gong Princess Consort, different from the average daughter-in-law. She couldn't stay in her maternal home for too long. Even if she stayed for a night, she was afraid that the next day she would be reprimanded by the Empress. Therefore, the Gong Princess Consort's honor guard came in the same way, and she returned. Whether it was a respectful welcome or a respectful farewell, the champion Marquis Fu's etiquette was complete. However, The Gong princess consort on the carriage didn't have the slightest sense of superiority, because she had personally experienced that all of her honor and glory really originated from her father. She had always denied this point, thinking that others were jealous that she was able to obtain all of her husband's favor. Even without her father, her husband would still treat her the same. This time, she had truly awakened from her beautiful dream. The feeling of falling from the clouds to the dust was always the ultimate pain. Was it hate? Definitely. But she didn't dare to retaliate against Jingwan. It was only because of the words that she, Qin Tianming, had said to her. If he angered the living king of hell, he could really do anything. If he killed her old man in a fit of anger, even if it was a felony to kill a first-rank official for no reason, could the emperor kill his own son to make up for the official's life? At most, it would only be a demotion. According to the emperor's favor towards Jin Qinhuang, it might only be a small punishment, but her old man's life would truly be gone. Without the left governor, the champion Marquis Fu could only wait to be divided up. She didn't have her father, so she could only wait to be given the cold shoulder, or even be removed from the court. Therefore, she Tang's Qin Wang Fei couldn't do anything to a female official, so she felt vexed and aggrieved. Not only that, no matter how much the Gong Qin Wang Fei pretended, it was not as glorious as before. Naturally, she would be ridiculed and squeezed out by her sisters-in-law. There was nothing more vexing than this. Luo Jingwan was a god of plague. If she couldn't provoke him, then she could only hide. What Jingwan knew, Sun Yijia naturally also knew. She looked at her with a smile that wasn't a smile, looking at Wan Mimi's meaning. It seems that you are quite honored. That's right. Jingwan nodded in agreement. Your skin is getting thicker as you age. If being thick-skinned can prevent yourself from getting hurt, then being thicker is also okay. Just like Jin Qinhuang Li Hongyuan, if his skin wasn't thick, would he start eating meat while hugging his fiancée? Definitely not. Alright, Sun Yijia was defeated by Jingwan's reasoning. But please, that was for outsiders, okay? Alright, Gue Jianchou, can you still accompany me all the time? You used to be grandmother's intimate little cotton-padded jacket. If you spend all the time on me, grandmother will definitely be jealous. Then wouldn't my sin be big? Then it's even simpler. Without me, isn't there still my Sanji? Your Sanji is a big man. It's even more impossible for him to revolve around me. How would that look? You don't need to accompany me all the time. You only need to appear at the right time. Then the effect of abusing dogs will be good. Sun Yijia was a bit confused. She could understand every word that Wan Mimi said, but she didn't understand when they were put together. Abusing dogs? What did it have to do with dogs? Jingwan didn't need to look to know what Sun Yijia was thinking. This wasn't a generation gap, but a generation gap separated by time and space. Thinking about it, sometimes it seemed quite lonely. Alright, Jingwan was a little sad. She slowly peeled the lychee shell. It was more interesting to eat these things by herself. In her own territory, she didn't need to care about her appearance. Well, to put it bluntly, it's just showing off. It's boring to show off clothes and jewelry. If you want to show off your husband. Words don't count. You have to let others see that your husband is not pretentious and not hypocritical. You have to show them that your husband truly cares about you. Only then will people be envious and jealous. No matter how much jealousy others have and say, you will only feel more comfortable. Yes, that was it. Among those noble people, no matter how good something was, it couldn't compare to a good husband. Sun Yijia understood what Jingwan meant. Wan Mimi was indeed full of bad ideas, but she also liked it very much. As for abusing dogs, she roughly understood. But wasn't it bad to compare those people to dogs? Forget it anyway. Outsiders couldn't hear it. If Wan Mimi said that they were dogs, then they were dogs. Young lady, second young lady, and young master are here. Oh, second older sister has come back from worshipping the ancestors? On the day Luo Romping was injured, she sent a letter to Luo Jingqiang. However, it was said that the husband and wife had returned to the old residence to worship the ancestors. Fortunately, it wasn't too far away. A round trip would only take a few days. In addition, Luo Rongping's specific condition was not confirmed, so she didn't anxiously send someone to send a letter to ask her to hurry back. However, her sister was here. Why did she bring her husband? Wasn't second older cousin at home? Let second brother-in-law go to third older brother's place? Jingwan glanced at Sanijia and saw that she also nodded. Yes, then let's do that. Second older sister, please come in. Jingwan's maidservant nimbly put away the unsuitable fruits on the table, as well as the seeds. Luo Jingqiang walked in unhurriedly under the guidance of a young maidservant. There was a faint smile on her face. When she saw Jingwan, her smile unconsciously became brighter. Compared to before she got married, Luo Jingqiang had changed a lot. It was obvious that she was living a good life in her husband's family. Second older sister, come and sit. In any case, they were sisters, not Luo Jingying, so there was no need for formalities. Luo Jingqiang didn't hold back. Third sister-in-law, third younger sister, I'm sorry to disturb you. It's fine. Jingwan waved her hand. Sunny Jia didn't mind and smiled at her. This smile made Luo Jingqiang feel a little flattered. The Sunny Jia in her mind was still the high and mighty noble lady, and not the third sister-in-law who had married into the Luo family and had a good temperament in all aspects. Sun Yijia pretended not to see and pushed the fruit plate in her hand to her. Eat some. Thank you, third sister-in-law. Sun Yijia nodded. It had to be said that even now, when there were other people around, her temperament was still a little cold. Second older sister, have you visited third uncle? Jingwan asked. Yes, I have. She didn't have any feelings for that man. She didn't feel the slightest fluctuation in her heart when she saw him lying limp on the bed. If it weren't for filial piety, and if it weren't for the people she cared about in the Luo family, she probably wouldn't have come back. However, Luo Jingqiang felt grateful to them. If it weren't for his accident, she wouldn't have come back so easily. Although her husband's family didn't care about her coming back to her parents' home at all, and even hoped that she would come back from time to get in touch with them, she couldn't do too much about it. However, her official mother's attitude was out of her expectations. It was as if she had changed into another person. Fourth younger sister sent someone back to visit father. He said that he was the steward of Prince Rui's mansion. Now second older brother is the only male in the third branch. Mother asked him to take care of people. This was the reason why she had brought her husband along. However, Luo Jingying sent someone back. It must be Prince Rui. It wasn't that Jingwan wanted to belittle her. She was going to the backyard of an unfamiliar residence alone. She thought that she had something solid to rely on, but it was actually thinner than a piece of paper. Whether it would become thicker or disappear completely in an instant, it all depended on Luo Peishan's attitude. A steward, and a man who she had never seen before, could be recruited by Luo Jingying in such a short time? Even if it was a joke, it couldn't be like this. Prince Rui hadn't completely given up on Luo Peishan. Otherwise, today's matter wouldn't have happened. However, it would be soon. At that time, Luo Jingying's good days would come to an end. My husband likes to draw. He admires third older brother, who can create fine brushwork. He has always wanted to learn from him. On the way here, he was excited and nervous like a young boy. Luo Jingqiang smiled. Sunny Jia looked at Jingwan with ridicule. Jingwan ignored her. She was as still as a mountain. There was no doubt that fine brushwork was her third older brother's new creation. You're staying for 2 more days this time? Yes. Mother has already asked my concubine to clean up the place where I used to live. My husband has also been arranged to live in second older brother's courtyard. That's right. What surprised Luo Jingqiang the most was that her mother had been grounded. Now that she was in the third branch, she was no longer grounded. This didn't seem like her mother's style at all. In her opinion, everything was strange. Originally, the mother had schemed against the second aunt, but in the end, the mother had found her concubine mother to take the blame. The concubine mother had been grounded by the grandmother, and had been ordered to move to the farmstead after she got married. When she returned home 3 days later, the grandmother had let her see the concubine mother. She seemed to have forgotten the punishment she had mentioned, and for some reason, the mother had not mentioned this matter. Until today, her concubine mother seemed to be fine. That's not bad. Jingwan nodded. Third younger sister. When I came here, I asked a steward who came with me about fourth younger sister's situation. Fourth younger sister seems to have a good life in Prince Rue's mansion. She enjoys silk and satin and delicacies from land and sea. Everyone avoids her and attends to her. Prince Rue also dotes on her very much. From the moment she entered the mansion until now, it seems that he has spent more than half of his days in her place. There were 2 times when Prince Rue rested in other places, and she asked someone to invite him, and Prince Rue agreed. What's more, one of them was in Princess Rue's place. It can be seen that he really dotes on her. Jingwan raised her eyebrows. It seemed that even her second sister had sensed that something was amiss, and was trying to curry favor with her. However, such a small matter was not a big deal. Fourth sister is not lacking in talent and beauty. It is not surprising that Prince Rue dotes on you. However, Luo Jingying had always believed that Prince Rue loved her. Now, she was even more dizzy and forgetful. She dared to snatch someone from Princess Rue's hands. Jingwan had to praise her. She really had guts. However, Prince Rue also worked hard. In order to achieve his goal, he could be regarded as a different kind of real man. It was said that one should think twice before acting. No matter what one did, it was best to leave a way out for oneself. Did Luo Jingying not think that even if Prince Rue really liked her, could this love last a lifetime? She even offended Princess Rue. Madame Lu had taught her a lot. She couldn't be so stupid, right? Did she have something to rely on? Or was she really pregnant? What kind of luck did she have? She met several people who hit the jackpot on the first try, including the one in Sun Yijia's belly. Jingwan suspected that she was pregnant on the wedding night. Weren't there many people who didn't have children for many years? Jingwan and the others were chatting, and Luo Jinghua seemed to be very harmonious. For those who really liked fine brushwork and were all relatives, Luo Jinghua was not stingy with his time. He wanted to carry forward fine brushwork, even if he couldn't let the world know that it was actually his younger sister's new creation. He hoped that his younger sister could see the world's admiration for fine brushwork. That was the glory that belonged to his younger sister. Although Prince Kong tried his best to prove his innocence, in the end, all the evidence still pointed to him, including the people who were detained. They probably really wanted to eat Prince Kong alive. Instead, they insisted that they were following his orders. Everything was said with certainty, and they even took out evidence that Prince Kong himself didn't know. Prince Kong was suddenly stunned. He didn't expect such a result. Originally, many people suspected that he didn't do it, but now more people believed him. And those who still didn't believe it looked like it had nothing to do with them. In fact, it wasn't that no one expected this result, but Prince Kong didn't do it properly. Who could he blame for shooting himself in the foot? Prince Kong flew into a rage like a furious beast. He cursed that a group of dogs dared to betray him. He didn't know how many officials who were loyal to him were bitterly disappointed. In order to let him ascend the throne, it could be said that they put in a lot of effort, but they didn't expect that in his eyes, they were a group of dogs that he could order to come and go as he pleased. However, he was just one of many princes. He thought that because he was the eldest son of the first wife, he took the throne for granted. Others scrambled for it because they were ambitious. Think about it. In history, how many of the sons who finally sat on the throne were the sons of the first wife, and how many were the eldest sons? Lu Qingdi was so angry with Prince Kong that his veins were bulging. He picked up something and smashed it down. When Prince Kong saw a black shadow flying over, he subconsciously raised his hand. Then, that thing hit the ground with a bang and broke into pieces. When he took a closer look, it turned out to be a seal. Fortunately, it was only Lu Qingdi's private seal. If it was the Imperial Jade Seal, it would be a big joke. Prince Kong finally calmed down a little. When he saw the furious Emperor Lu Qingdi, His legs went soft, and he swallowed his saliva. "Father, please believe me. I was really wronged. They framed me." Lu Qingdi looked at him coldly. Li Hongyi framed a court official. He will be fined 1 year's salary. From now on, he will be suspended from all duties. Go back to the mansion and reflect on his mistakes. He is not allowed to take half a step out of the mansion without being summoned. If he violates this order, he will be stripped of his title and demoted to a commoner. This time, Prince Kang's mind really went blank. It took him a long time to recover. "Come on, drag this evil creature out and expel him from the palace immediately." The commander of the Imperial Guards personally led his men into the room and carried Prince Kang out. "Father, I'm really wronged. Believe me, I really didn't do anything." Unfortunately, no matter how he screamed, Lu Qingdi was indifferent. "Li Hongming, it's you, isn't it? It must be you who framed me. You despicable man. Do you think you can get away with it? I tell you, don't even think about it. Li Hongming, wait for me. I will never let you go." Prince Rui lowered his eyebrows and narrowed his eyes indifferent. And Lu Qingdi, who was in a rage, didn't dare to stroke his beard. Emperor's son, they thought that this matter was over, but Lu Qingdi opened his mouth again. This time, his words were enough to scare them out of their wits. Without waiting for him to continue, a group of people led by Ruan Ruizong, the Prime Minister of the Cabinet, immediately stepped forward. They couldn't let Lu Qingdi finish his sentence. After all, he had just attacked Prince Kang, and then he mentioned his mother. It was obvious that it was not something good. Empress Sun was virtuous and virtuous. She had been careful and conscientious in managing the imperial harem for many years. She didn't make a big mistake. If she spoke without thinking and said something she shouldn't, it would be too late for regrets. Even Prince Rui didn't want to involve the Empress in this matter. Although he wanted to be the legitimate son, and noble consort Su wanted to be the Empress, this matter was not so simple. It involved too many people. If the Empress really fell, many people would be implicated. Noble consort Su would bear the brunt of everyone's attack. The imperial court was already unstable. If there was a bloody battle in the imperial harem, it would be really, therefore. Prince Rui stepped out without hesitation. Lu Qingdi breathed a sigh of relief. He wasn't disappointed after all. However, Empress Sun didn't teach her son well. She is ordered to kneel in the ancestral temple for 2 hours to reflect on herself. She will stay in the imperial harem during the summer holiday next month. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Fortunately, after dealing with this matter, Lu Qingdi took out a secret memorial and passed it to the officials to read. The western border is very important to the Qi Yuan. I believe everyone knows that although this matter didn't happen at an important pass, if it isn't handled well, it will cause a very bad impact and even affect the safety of the border. Therefore, I want to send an imperial envoy to investigate this matter immediately and make appropriate arrangements. As soon as he said this, many people stepped out to ask for the order. There were civil and military officials. If this matter was handled well, it would be a great merit. Even the princes didn't want to miss it. As for the origin of this memorial, no one looked into it because it wasn't the first time it appeared. At the same time, no one questioned the contents of the memorial. As a candidate for the imperial envoy, I have already made my decision. Old Gio, you've been in the imperial harem for a long time. This time, I'm sending you to train and don't let me down. He was only 17 years old. In the imperial harem, he had been divided by his elder brothers. Although he was unwilling and hated that he was born late, there was nothing he could do. Although he had sided with the Empress on the surface, he still couldn't calm down. He wanted to make a good achievement and impress his father. However, important things never came to him. Naturally, he couldn't touch the important things. He always came in contact with the minor details. This time, he was eager to fight for it. However, he didn't have much hope. Unexpectedly, he was surprised. After being stunned for a moment, he hurriedly thanked his father. "Don't worry, father. I won't let you down." Very good. Go back and get ready. We'll set off tomorrow. As for the entourage, Minister Luo, do you have a suitable candidate in mind? After all, this wasn't a small matter. Naturally, it was impossible to leave it to a greenhorn. In fact, the entourage was the key. Luo Peishan was the minister of the Ministry of Personnel. Coupled with his recent actions, Lu Qingdi still had high expectations for the person he recommended. Luo Peishan thought for a moment and casually named a few people. Combined with the contents of the previous memorial, he recommended people from the Ministry of Civil Affairs, the Ministry of Revenue, the Ministry of War, and even the Ministry of Justice. Obviously, he had considered all the possible situations that might be involved and who would be suitable to represent them. As for which faction they belonged to, Luo Peishan said that he didn't know. Lu Qingdi thought for a moment and decided to arrange it like this. They were all people recommended by Luo Peishan. None of them were changed. Your Majesty, I have one more thing to say. Luo Peishan said. Speak. For this trip, perhaps we can add the 3 people who passed the Jinshi exam this year. They are all the future pillars of Qi Yuan. Why don't we take this opportunity to train them? In the future, they will be able to serve Your Majesty and Qi Yuan better. In addition, they are all young people. Along the way, Your Highness won't be lonely. Perhaps you can learn from each other. Minister Luo's words are reasonable. I approve. Your Majesty, how about adding Sun Bingbai from the internal court? That's great. Lu Qingdi agreed without hesitation. Thus, the main personnel for this trip to the western border was finalized in the conversation between the monarch and his minister. As for these people, the others really didn't have any good ideas. After all, Luo Peishan was really looking at the big picture and was impartial. If he wanted to squeeze someone out and replace them with his own people, it was inevitable that he would be caught and criticized. However, with Lord Jiu as the leader, Lord Jiu's birth mother relied on the empress in the harem. In other words, he was equivalent to Prince Kang's little follower. Lu Qingdi had just angered him, and now he chose his people to do this important task. Did it mean that Lu Qingdi was not completely disappointed in him? Prince Kang would stand up sooner or later. It was naturally difficult to refute something that had been decided. However, Father, according to Lord Luo's suggestion, why don't we let Lord Jiu go with us? He joined the court later than Lord Jiu, and it's time for him to gain experience. Let's not talk about what to do. Even if he just watches and listens, I think it will be very beneficial for Lord Jiu. What do you think? Prince Rui said. The 10th Wangya was his follower. Everyone was well aware of his intentions. Lu Qingdi pondered for a moment. Originally, the plan was to let Lord Jiu and Lord Jiu be imperial envoys. However, because of the previous incident, in order to balance things out, he naturally had to appease Lord Jiu when he suppressed Lord Jiu. However, it was not impossible to let Lord Jiu follow him and not participate in the decision-making. Approved. Thank you, Father. Prince Rui kowtowed and thanked him. Lord Jiu, who was indignant, also thanked him with joy at this time. However, his joy was somewhat exaggerated. Thinking about it, it was reasonable. His elder brother, who was not much older than him, was in charge, while he just followed him. It was a living torture. In this case, it was better for him to stay in the capital, and then go to Qingda Palace to avoid the summer heat and live a comfortable and happy life. Prince Rui glanced at him and more or less felt his dissatisfaction. He frowned imperceptibly. The other 4 did not have the qualifications to attend the imperial court yet. After hearing about this matter, they were all grateful to Luo Peishan. Not everyone would have such an opportunity when they were just starting out. It should be known that this kind of experience would allow them to have a better start than others. Moreover, there were so many officials on this trip, and they had nothing to do during the journey. They believed that if they asked for advice, most of them would not refuse. After the court, Lord Luo is really not stingy to guide the younger generation. Ruan Ruizong said with a calm expression, Even if others did not dare to point fingers at him, the rumors that caused the whole family to be afraid to go out still made him very angry. Luo Peishan still did not get along with him. Even a saint was angry, not to mention he was not a saint. If Luo Peishan wanted to go against him, why should he be polite and bear with it? The moment he made such a decision, it meant that Ruan Ruizhong had lost his normal heart. In this way, when he did things in the future, it was inevitable that he would be biased. In this way, the balance would be tilted, and he could no longer be absolutely neutral. Luo Peishan chuckled and put on a fake smile. As the minister of the Ministry of Personnel, is that what I should do? Ruan Ruizhong nodded and turned to leave. Luo Peishan looked at his retreating figure with some pity. If a person like you one day found out that you were treated like a fool, kept in the dark, and played by the people you trusted and loved dearly, how would you react? Perhaps, when you were thinking wholeheartedly for them, they were actually laughing at you in their hearts and treating you like a clown. How sad would that be? After Li Hongyuan saw the list of people on this trip to the West, although most of the people were different from the people in his previous life, it did not exceed his expectations. However, after seeing Sun Yilin and Chun Jingmin's names, he laughed coldly. To put it nicely, he was guiding the younger generation, but he still felt guilty toward these two people. The other two were just incidental. This old fox was not really that selfless. This favor had allowed him to pick up 100%. This time, there was only one imperial envoy. Without Old 10th to oppose him, Old 9th should listen to his advice and handle this matter well. Li Hongyi's stupidity could be considered as doing a good thing. He did not need to worry about the aftermath. After reading the list, he threw it aside and did not ask about it anymore. Anyway, he did not completely ignore it. If there was an unexpected situation, the people on the other side would definitely send news. Now he should think about how to pull Wan into his arms when he arrived at the temporary imperial residence. In the temporary imperial residence, they lived relatively close to each other. However, because it was crowded, it also meant that there were many eyes. However, at that time, there would be all kinds of banquets, poetry banquets, flower banquets, and even wine banquets every day. It would be easy to fish in troubled waters. Muan, how are the preparations at the temporary imperial residence? In reply to Master, this servant personally watched everyone arrange one by one. You can rest assured that nothing will go wrong. That was the Master's pleasure nest. This year, there was a high chance that the future female master would also go there. Naturally, he did not dare to have the slightest neglect. Eunuch Mu lowered his head for a long time and did not wait for his master's response. He slightly raised his head and took a look. The beauty was lying on the couch with her eyes closed. She seemed to be asleep. His master with his eyes closed was always more harmless than with his eyes open. However, even so, Eunuch Mu did not dare to take another look. Tian did not need to be covered with a quilt in this state. After thinking about it, he personally took the fan and moved closer to her. Gently, with a rhythm that was neither fast nor slow, he fanned her again and again. 2 days after the people going to the west were ready to set off, the list of people going to the temporary imperial residence for the summer was also released. As for the candidate to stay in the capital to supervise the country, it was really unexpected. It was the 7th prince, who had no sense of existence. He was 2 years younger than Li Hongyuan. He was not picky in his work and was always able to complete the tasks given to him. Except for some things that had already been decided by objective conditions, the things that needed his subjective participation were basically just passable, and the results were mediocre. His biological mother was just a palace maid who died early. However, at that time, he was already 6 years old. Lu Qingdi did not give him to other concubines to raise, and he was raised by a group of palace maids. Perhaps because he had no one to rely on, he was not bullied or embarrassed. This time, he was asked to stay and supervise the country for 2 months. It could only be said that misfortune and fortune came hand in hand. After all, Prince Rui thought that after Li Hongyi was gone, He would definitely be the one to supervise the country. As for the Gong Prince, before his eldest brother was taken away, he shouted that it was the third prince who harmed him. Regardless of whether it was true or not, Imperial Father would not let him supervise the country. Then, the possibility of it being him was very high. Li Hongyuan and the sickly fifth prince were definitely not considered, and from a start, no one thought about the seventh prince. Most likely, it was either the third prince or the fourth prince, or both. Hey, who knows, it was not even one. In Li Hongyuan's previous life, there was no Luo romping incident, so Li Hongyi was not grounded, but the one to supervise the country was still the seventh prince. In addition, of the 4 cabinet elders, except for the Grand Secretary, the other 3 were left to assist the seventh prince. This point was consistent. In his previous life, these 2 months in the capital were peaceful, but this time, it might not be so. After all, there was still Li Hongyi in the capital. Even if he was grounded, not allowed to take half a step out of the palace, don't forget, the Empress was also staying in the palace. If she wanted to do something, it was very likely that she would not be discovered. This made people look forward to it. Of course, Li Hongyuan was also waiting for this opportunity to thoroughly deal with Ruan Fangfei. With his quasi-concubine title, it was really an incomparable eyesore. On the last 2 days of the 5th month, headed by Lu Chengdi's ceremonial guards, a fleet of carriages with no end in sight majestically left the capital. Digression. https://www.bicken.com/11/11807/6653152 HTML chapter error. Click here to report no registration required. We will deal with it as soon as possible. After reporting, please wait patiently and refresh the page. Please remember the domain name of this book, www.bicken.com, Bikuga mobile reading website, Bicken.com. That you're tuning in to the Echo Reads YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.